welcome back, everyone, to Advantage in Paradise. All right, we're gonna jump right into the recap.
We're jumping in.
Thank you, Alex. All right. All right. Last we left off, the Wayward Five found their position at the Enduran second line, besieged. Uh, a massive firebombing decimated the stretch of defensive earthworks. Through the icy fog, the whirling snow and ash, and the licking flame, our heroes fought with the endurance to secure their escape and the preservation of the line. While soldiers.
Sorry, no, not you, Sean. Not you. It's my mess up. Tim is ghosting behind Stefan right now.
Okay. While soldiers traded blows, the heroes fought against a grist knight, a soldier enhanced by magical experiments by General Kinsley and his wizards, as well as a Quintarchy battle mage bearing a dragon mask. Magic billowed and lit up the smoke and rot of the trench line, as through the mists above appeared a drift fortress, a large floating rock carrying a trebuchet and lodestone cannons akin to a small fort in the sky. It rained cannon fire on the line, but thankfully Wiswick's earth elemental had been putting out fires, but upon being commanded, it somehow figured out the trebuchet. The elemental shifted itself into three smaller forms that, through sheer luck and ingenuity, was able to launch a firebomb directly at the drift fortress. Dozens of fireball spells erupted upon the floating vessel, causing it to collapse to the earth, with a shattering quake billowing dust and snow into the air. In this quaking, the party defeated the Grist Knight and weakened the Battle Mage. Seeing imminent defeat before her, she teleported from the battlefield, signaling the Enduran line's victory. The rejoicing lasted but only a moment, as the soldiers and our heroes immediately began tending to the wounded in the broken earthworks. Many died that day, but many more would have without the Wayward Five. The party quickly began preparations to leave for the south, believing this attack may have been targeting Governor Oreo Clay, whom they were entrusted to escort to Vermalcia, the capital of Untduras. They also have a long road ahead of them to reach the Fields of Glass in Farathris, the Beastlands, to find what Curon is looking for, that he believes will help them in their fight against the Pallid King. So they set off on the eastern byway through the mountainous nooks and crannies of northern Untduras. First, they passed through some of the northern tillage, an infrastructure project by Duke Lithonius that sadly was the first targeted by the Quintarchy. These farmlands now gather thin quilts of snow over scorched and ashen earth stained by war. In a distance, they can see the ruins of the once splendid city of Tasaka, devastated at the first battle of this great war, demonstrating the new horrors and technologies brought forth by both the Quintarchy and the Gwyn Empire. But the journey was not all shadow. On their first night of rest, a massive herd of Enduran Auric protected the party from a stalking mountain lion. These friendly beasts are the symbol of Untduras, an enduring, intelligent, and kind creature. Cal and Scarlet shared a moment as one approached, but peacefully left them to their camp. By the campfire of this night, Oriel spoke at length with Curon about the nature of the gods and the nature of Zendario the Everflame. His faith in her is different from the all-consuming monotheism of the North. He believes in respect for all of the gods and attempted to showcase the differing perspectives of the South. Furthermore, he spoke with Timber regarding burnt prayer beads he carries. To him, a sign of a charlatan or someone hiding something. Timber pushed to know more about what Oriel considers proper good deeds or good works in the eyes of Zandario. Protection of the innocent and veneration for life. His philosophy sounds noble, but you have met many men and women you thought noble who showed otherwise. The next morning, you all saw this man praying before the struggling amber light of a gloaming sunrise. Old burn scars covered half his torso. But that is where we left off on this morning, 29th morning of Leargloam, the Raven's Shadow, on a Tolvis dog, under the morning light of the enduring glittering dale. Wayward Five, what would you like to do?
So,
Sorry.
we've awakened. Am I still a ghost behind Stefan? Has that been settled?
That's been rectified.
Excellent. Okay, yeah. We would awaken. Cal would immediately do a quick perimeter scan, basically looking to see if anyone had, if there were signs of anyone who was like watching us throughout the night, or I guess if they're still there, but more like just to make sure that nobody was around outside of our perimeter that we didn't catch in the night before coming back and
Certainly,
start
if
to
you'd
get
like
things
to
ready to go.
kind of investigate the perimeter of the camp, you can give me a investigation roll.
So good at this.
Timber just woke up and he really has to go to the bathroom, so he's gonna be right back.
You
Sean,
all
for
watch.
fun.
You all watch as Timber just wanders off, stumbling, having been, one might say, a bit tipsy the night prior. He stumbles off to relieve himself in a bush. Yeah, Cal, you start to move around in the perimeter around the camp, and I think for the most part, you know, it's difficult to notice any changes, especially after the aura curd had kind of paraded through this area, and you seem to trust that Curon may have caught anything, at least in the last hours of the evening.
All right, yeah. So I return and maybe put some salted meat or whatever we've got in my stomach, and I start getting the stuff packed back onto the horses.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the rest of you doing?
I'm currently preparing spells.
I imagine Curon is he's already packed up on his horse, like sitting astride on the saddle, and he's just eating a nut medley, as it were. As he's just sitting there, just seeing Cal get back from his watch, he might be like, "See anything I miss out there?"
No, if there was anything, that Oryx heard in the night for sure got rid of any evidence. There possibly could have been. I say,
Yes, hoofs
cinching
and-
the saddle tight.
Are we supposed to be chased by someone? Is there a threat in this type of part of the lands?
We're not so far beyond the lines that I'm willing to risk it.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
see,
After
go ahead.
If they're after the governor, willing to throw that many resources at a depot that we are at, who knows what else they might send.
Cal nods in agreement. Like, yeah, I didn't think that needed to be said.
Just in case.
Huron is a very literal man. You would, at that point, Oriel would have returned from his morning prayers. I'd say it's pretty early in the day. At this point, it's really around like 7 a.m. And he starts to pack up his own horses. Well, Lieutenant, you know these lands better than I believe. What dangers may lay ahead of us? Do you know of what regions might be sympathetic to your northern, well, old brethren?
Most of the people down here are going to be solid Alliance members. We're gonna be heading first towards Atronari, I believe. Sean, is that right?
Atronar, yes.
Yeah, Okay. And then after that, we go pretty much straight south down to the capital. We will be skirting the whole time the Chromatis hinterlands, which are not known for their hospitable nature, but they are not. We shouldn't be dealing with anything coming to get us, as it were. It's just we need to make sure not to venture in there.
Well, excellent. I believe we should make off then, unless there's anything else we need to do.
Cal swings down to the saddle and nods his head to the governor and goes, "I would agree," and boots his horse into motion.
Okay.
Oh my god, a lot of things happened while I was gone.
Yeah, I imagine everyone is on their horses right now as Timber is coming back from the longest urination of his life. It's all that wine and whiskey you drank last night during your watch.
Yeah.
Wiswick's, he has set up some like homework style pages of notes that he's like got in like big. He wrote in big language letters, so that way he can continue to teach his golem as they move along. I believe that the last subject that he was working on was languages.
That is correct. Yes, you were teaching him. I believe you were teaching him one by one every language you knew.
Yep. So I don't know how much he's retained so far, but like, imagine like I'm just doing basic words in like the 4 different languages that I know, and just like doing easy command words, like things that I would teach a dog or something like that, so that way he could just have a general idea of what I might want from him if I speak in those languages.
That makes sense, and also so that you can designate things that other people might be able to command it to do.
Mm-hmm.
Since no one can talk to it right now but you. Okay. All right. And Scarlet would be getting ready as well in the morning. All right. So you all are heading off. Could I get a marching order?
Dogs up front. Well, no. Dogs by the side next to Cal.
Who is near the front?
Yeah.
And or at the front, depending on who. I'm not going to be like, I have to take point, but I will if.
Yeah.
Wiswick's holding up the back.
Yeah.
I guess Kieran would be at the front, with his eyes ever open.
Yeah,
I make sure that the governor is like immediately like a horse length behind me, no more.
Yeah, I would say he's always going to be right behind you when you're in these lines.
Yeah, cool. All right, good.
I figure I always need to be in the back because the golem would block everybody's view.
Yeah. And it's not exactly a discreet approach anywhere you're going when the golem is
boom, boom, boom
behind you.
Well, nobody got me a horse, so it was my only option.
Wiswick, I did get you a horse. It took one of those fireballs to the face.
Yeah.
Well, at least we got a revenge.
True.
By the way,
Good.
Cal,
Yes.
is there any chance maybe? I mean, I've spent a lot of my money in Kerdolan, on various research products, and I'm a little strapped for cash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it's not like I'm asking for a handout or anything, but maybe if we could like do some side jobs, or are we getting paid for this?
No.
Okay. Maybe we can just take a brief jump into those dangerous forests you were talking about, kill
No.
some monster, get some supplies.
No. My job is to get the governor back to the capital. After that, we can do whatever you'd like.
Well, after that, we'll be heading south to the fields of glass.
Cal nods like, right, yeah. So, never mind.
Do they have any wealth in the fields of glass?
I have to imagine they'll have plenty of dark, dangerous caverns for us to go into, seeking all kinds of ancient magical items and weapons.
No,
All to be
no, I
used
think it's
for
mostly goblins, actually.
Well, goblins have their treasures as well, right?
Yeah, but you can't just go around stealing treasures from people.
No, of course not.
Cal says, like side-eyeing Kieran, like, what's changed? Why are you volunteering to go after these fucking people?
I mean, are the
Sharon-
goblins evil?
Kieran looks back to Cal, like gesturing, like, "What am I
No.
supposed to say, man? I need to get him to come with us."
No, Wiswick, the goblins are not evil. They're their own. They're decent folk, from what I've seen. Sean, are they
Okay.
decent folk? Okay, good.
Yes.
Just
Thought so.
all I ask is that you guys keep your eyes out for business opportunities, okay?
Once we
Wiswick,
get to
we are on a
Brimley, I'm fine with that.
quest to save this very world. If that is not enough of a reward for you, I don't know what is.
Look, even
anyone-
the most noblest of quests need funding, Kieran.
Right. And I'm sure at the end of it, all the people of this plane of existence will be glad to pay us in all kinds of gold and gemstones. Until then, we need to focus on our goal ahead.
Anyone
and
looking
Kieran.
at the front of the party now, because Cal is no longer turned around looking. When Kieran was like, our job is to save the fate of the world, Cal's not rolling his eyes, but just like, yeah, all right, okay, sure, whatever you want, pal.
I'd say the only person who would notice that would be Timber,
The audience. Sorry.
and sure the audience. But as far as the people in this world, Timber, you would notice that.
Timber has his head down. Well, like he's like looking around every so often, just picking his head up, but he's mostly just looking down the road while they're talking.
Well, I suppose in entrepreneurial adventures are part of your world saving. This is new information to me. I'd love to hear more about this quest to save our plane of existence you just spoke of.
Oh, of course. And at this, Kieran reins Rocco around, like waits up for the rest of the party to pass, and then gets up parallel to the governor. And do we want to role play this, or can we just say, and he says his piece?
It's up to you. If you want to, if Kieran would just like lay it all out, then we don't have to role play it. If you're just literally gonna,
He would lay it all out and do it, fairly poetically, but in like that kind of awkward Kieran way where he takes weird pauses, and you're like, "What's he say? What's he trying to say?" And then like he goes on a tangent somewhere else. Where he starts with, "Well, you remember the Marcia conflict, right? Happened about
Of course.
a millennium ago, right? Millennium. That's 1,000
Several.
years. Yeah. Well, so, and then fade to black as we discuss.
Yeah, and I imagine, just for your reference, like perhaps it's his kind of like upbringing or like late upbringing in the Gwyn Empire, but he's listening the entire time and he does not interrupt you. He is, and in no point does he kind of like roll his eyes and just start to ride away a little bit and be like, "All right, I was kind of joking about that because I thought you were kind of out of it when you said that," but no, he's deeply concerned and listening entirely, and by the end of it, he would say, "Well, that is a compelling story. You all have seen much. I took you as just interested parties in Lieutenant Stormrain here, but you have seen much of the world. This Pallid King, I've never heard of such a being, such an entity, in any of my personal studies."
Yes, they don't even have that much on him in the Kerisri Academy. And what they do raises more questions than answers them.
Interesting.
A
What do you-
spawn of the old god Nylogoth, it seems. As I said, planted by Hadric the Wayward One. Whether he works on his own will, the Pallid King that is, or still works as a potential harbinger for the Wayward One's ultimate plan, I'm not totally sure, though they seem to be two separate entities.
Hmm.
Whether they join forces, well, that's our greatest fear. Mine, at least, he says, looking to the rest of his companions like,
These deities, they operate, as far as we know, on this mortal plane. They operate at such vast timelines. You can be sure this is the time for a soul to come. Mayhaps this war is causing more problems than I thought.
of all the times to have the forces in our world fractured and fighting amongst themselves, I dare say this could be one of the worst. Which leads me to believe something of the Pallid King or the Wayward One, his harbinger, are affecting the general and his ilk.
Do you have evidence of this? Something you can show for all this story?
Unfortunately, I have no hard proof, and that's why we haven't quite gone after him with the same vigor, but
Wait, what do you guys mean? Didn't you see the evidence yourself? On the battlefield. They were wearing that weird armor, remember?
yes, though we never truly linked the old Karasri armor to the Pallid King or the Harbinger.
The Quint battle mages wear that now. I knew it was familiar. I remembered it, but I frankly didn't have the time to actually
Oh, well,
investigate it.
of course, the Academy adores the artifacts of the Kirasri. It's not a large leap for their soldiers now to be wearing those, or at least armored fashioned after those artifacts.
They're not just replicas, though. Those are the actual thing. Like, he's using the old magics from those artifacts to empower his soldiers.
Oh well, I guess there is
It's really a shame if you ask me.
there is the connection between Scarlet's. Yeah, I guess he probably would have laid out the whole thing about Thatcher and the mask and their connection with Scarlet, who, I apologize, Shannon, you're not here to interlude.
Yeah, I think that whenever you got too personal on that, during your whole story, I'd like throw a crumpled up piece of paper at your head or something.
All
like
right,
that.
so maybe Kieran has tact enough to omit
Yeah.
the family connection. However, he still talks about Thatcher and his pallid mask and his research being funded by the Karasri Academy, who we know is in cahoots with General Kinsley.
Well, Kinsley is his mind is a machine. He will stop at nothing to get what he wants.
Well, that was certainly apparent.
I think
What
the
I-
question really is what exactly does he want? Just simply power or something more?
Well, power can drive all manner of persons to great and terrible things. But what I truly would like to know is if you have any way of... Yes, there's these connections to Kinsley you speak of. But what I am seeking or asking is if you have any connections, any evidence of this cosmic threat. What do you have that can show this? I'm very curious with what you've told me this is not a man to toss such observation and experience into the waste, thinking you're just mad.
Unfortunately, most of what I have is personal knowledge. Though we do have this, and he takes out the researcher's Cillian Fox's journal.
Alien Fox, yeah. I thought,
Yeah, Dillian Docs.
yeah, who knows? Yep.
Kieran's always
Hickory Dickory
mispronounced that
Docs.
name. It's part of who he is. Well,
Eh.
I only say this because it's been long since this world or any kingdom or nation or peoples has dealt with a serious threat of the other worlds. We've simply been killing each other for the last 1,000 years.
I mean, for the amount of time that we've spent fighting these insurgents into our realm, from weird monster druids to demons to like undead abominations, like it's got to be affecting everyone. Like, I can't imagine that only the scenarios that we found ourselves in. Well, this has got to be happening everywhere. I mean,
But all places suffer from momentary quarrels or breaches of magic and wild things or dangerous people. But you're not just talking about the undead coming in the night or some monster stumbling upon a village and in a panic destroying and killing or feasting. You're talking about something people can't even perceive or think clearly about. Cosmic threats are strings of time and actors that have spanned millennia, sat rotting in other places in this cosmos and are threatening us now. That is something that kings don't care about. Unless you can show them, it will challenge their power.
Well, lucky for us, we don't seek kings. We don't seek rulers. They tend to only do things when the time is too late.
Well, then what are you seeking, ultimately? I know you're going south, but if this threat is something coming, what do you plan to do with 5 individuals when you'll need allies?
Cal looks very interested at this question. As if to hear the answer would be interesting for him as well.
Of course, we are always looking for more allies. If allowed, I would very much like to meet with the king of Untduras, though I know one of my station might not make it there. We already have some allies. Those we've met along our path, ordinary folk, as it might say. For in the end, it's not the kings that will stop them. It's not those in power. It's folk like us who keep their eyes open and understand what's going on in the world, unlike that boy king in Oxland, as his people suffered. The queen in, what was that place, Sverwald, where the Highland Syndicate is allowed to run amok. Those are not the people I seek to ally with.
Yeah, tell me yourself, sir. What would you do in our situation? I mean, the governments of this surface world are terrible. They don't care about anything that we would have to say to them. We can't give them evidence because it's, like you said, a cosmic entity. It's something that we can't even imagine. the threat that's coming to us, and we don't have a choice but to try and stave off as much damage as possible until they realize that they're going to be in trouble. We can't show them anything. They have to experience it. The only way people of power are going to help us is if they learn it the hard way.
Huron, before I respond to Wiswick, give me an insight check.
19.
You notice a distinct. So, like, the way he's been talking to you has been both. It's not been like challenging in the sense of like
Right.
hostile. It's been mostly in a sense trying to understand and wrap his mind around it, but also figure out what's going to happen. At the mention of the world's governments, particularly when you started talking about Oxland, Boy King and all of this, the kind of jovial face kind of dropped a little bit, not to like anger, but just sort of like, kind of just surprise, like a sad surprise, like sad and surprised, just that you're mentioning and your this dismal view of the world's governments, but particularly when you mentioned the Boy King. He'll respond to you, Wiswick.
You want me
What
to
I
repeat
do-
myself?
No. I remember what you said. What would I do in your situation? With kings and archons and Basilius who don't listen, and I would try to show them however I could. And you're not wrong, Kiran. Moving the hearts of the people and those around you is valuable. But a king, a queen, a Basilius, a duke, they can move the hearts of many more under the right circumstances. What I would do in your situation, I don't have the answer to that. I'm just simply trying to understand.
Of course, Governor.
It's a heavy morning in these winds of the valley to be discussing the end of our world.
Well, unfortunately, there's not much else I think about these days. Kiran says as
I'd
he...
have prayed more vigorously this morning if I knew this was my day.
I found this conversation quite refreshing, honestly. I've just been teaching the alphabet for a couple of days.
And I would ask you the same question, Wiswick, Netherrock, all the other names you've got. What would you do if you went home? Your people are not those who would liken themselves to defend the world. If I recall correctly of the histories, you shielded yourselves in the deeps when the conflict came.
My people, they're not cowardly per se, but they care for their own so deeply that they won't risk themselves in a foolish manner to save the bigger picture. Being on the surface for so long and meeting these people here, it's opened my eyes to the larger threat, and I don't know if I could ever go back to being the way I was. However, there is no good answer to my question. The people of the surface aren't going to get any better until they experience what it's like to, like, once they see their mistakes. So I must try and be a good example, maybe if I gather enough money or enough power, I can create a country of my own, and become a duke, and then I'll have influence, and I'll be able to sway the people. Wouldn't that be cool?
And you see, the Duke kind of slows his horse to be walking besides the construct in Wiswick, and he smiles up at you, Wiswick. What a lovely place it would be. Folk in this new land all had your spirit, Wiswick.
Sounds a little chaotic to me, Kieran says over his shoulder to Cal and Timber.
And the Duke would look back at you and say, and perhaps chaos is what is needed sometimes. What is chaos?
You're not wrong, Kieran says, looking forward again.
Sometimes it is the order that is restricting and holding things in place, burning energy, burning lives to retain itself. And perhaps chaos is order in its natural form. We've all learned, I suppose, maybe at least those. We all seem very researched. The pillars.
Yes, you always need a balance between the two. Order and chaos, hand in hand.
Is it not order that drove the hand of Adric?
Yes, but it was the chaos that followed that we deal with now. The chaos of a dying Feywild.
Well, we have a long journey ahead of us.
And plenty of time to talk about the bigger things in our universe.
And he smiles at you, Kieran. I agree. For now, I
Yeah.
suppose we should keep an eye on these mountains and fields and trees. And hold our cloaks close, as this storm seems to be raging around us. And obviously, he means your cosmic theories and the actual whipping of snow that's happening around you all right now, as it is getting increasingly difficult to travel and keep your eyes looking forward. There's a lot of wind whipping your cloaks up and kind of blinding you as the snow, it's not snowing out, but the snow is being whipped up to create sort of a fog, a whiteout a little bit that makes it difficult to move forward. And before we kind of jump ahead in this road travel, I think it'd be a good time to take a very, very, very quick break just to get Shannon into the room, everyone.
Come on in, Shannon. Come on in. Come on. Where are you?
All right, Alex, do you want to go on to a break screen? All right, folks, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Just going to get Shannon set up, and then we'll be jumping right back in. Welcome back, everyone. We've got our lovely, lovely Shannon back in the room so that we can get moving on with this journey. Welcome, Shannon. To catch you up, you were watching, so I don't think we have to catch
I
you
was
up.
watching. No, you don't.
Okay.
I took notes too.
Oh, excellent.
Uh,
All right. Well, you've all had somewhat of an intellectual conversation in the morning on the 29th of Lyriglum. It's approaching at this point about midday, as you it took a long time for Kieran to tell that story, and he was very detailed. And now you all are kind of just moving onward. It's probably going to take you from where you were coming from. It is going to take you a few days to get to Atronar. So there is going to be some kind of roughing it on the road. You do have plenty of supplies, though, so there isn't any worries there, but you are still somewhat close to the front line, so it is not 100% safe necessarily. Nowhere really is safe during these times, except behind the walls of some places. But anyway, it is around midday at this point, so it is pretty dark. It's pretty dusky out. There is the kind of whipping snow all around you as you are moving a little bit slower on the road at this point. You know, scarves wrapping your faces, cloaks wrapping your faces as this wind whips all around you, and the snow is blistering some of your skin. As you're really seeing kind of like the approaching of the real long dark now at the end of Lyriglum. Behind the clouds, you can kind of just barely see the iris of the sun behind the clouds, bleeding through as you are traveling forward. I have a marching order already. Is anyone keeping an eye out, or is there anything you'd like to do while you're on the road?
Where am I in the marching order? Where'd I end up?
You are right behind Oriel in front of Wiswick, so you're second to last.
Cool. Thank you.
I would be keeping an eye out.
Okay, those of you keeping an eye out, please give me a perception check at disadvantage because of the snow.
Ooh, Sean. Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Can I use a feature?
You can.
Fantastic.
And you tell me what it looks like when you use it.
So as we're marching, Kieran's up ahead of the party, and he takes out his staff of the Crescent Heart. And it's a little awkward on a horse to perform it, but he kind of like puts out his hand, gripping the staff in one arm, and he does a very rhythmic, almost like half dance with just his upper torso in the staff, where he does some cool things, and maybe he like taps it in the air little spots, and you see it activate, and his eyes glow, and I forgot what the feature is actually called.
Eyes of the Moon.
Eyes of the Moon. He uses Eyes of the Moon, giving him advantage on a perception check.
Like you ever needed it.
No, but when there's moments where I have disadvantage, a la right here.
Could I
Very
also
distracted by this.
ask-
Cal rolls a 5.
I got a
I'm sorry,
16.
a 7.
Sean, could we have said that I had Jet because last time he died, I feel like this morning I probably would have resummoned him?
Yeah. Just take the resources out of your bag, and you can.
Of course.
you can
And
do that.
does he still have
That's-
advantage because it's based on hearing?
Hearing, yes. Yeah, I'll say he doesn't have advantage, but he doesn't have disadvantage because.
Okay, I'll take it.
Because the whipping winds are a bit loud and it's a little bit difficult for him to fly around, but he can still have it neutralized.
Okay, whatever he rolled, he gets +1 too.
Scarlet, that was
my
16 you got?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Cal, you said you got a 7. Timber, are you keeping an eye out? What'd you get?
I'm sorry, I got a 15.
Okay. And
I got a
Timber, are you
13.
doing
Listening.
scent or vision? Or listening? Listening, cool.
Yeah.
Kieran, what'd you get?
16.
And then Wiswick, what did Jet get?
13.
13. Okay. It is tough to see out there. I'd say Scarlet, Kieran, and Timber, you pick up a few things. The rest of you, it's too difficult to see through. Let me roll for Oriel, too. Oh, disadvantage. Yeah. Okay, he doesn't see much either. But for Scarlet, let's see, Timber, you're listening out. It's a situation where you're kind of listening through, and it's kind of like the wind's whipping, and every now and then you think you hear the crunching of snow out in the fields, because where you are currently is still the tillage. So you're seeing essentially seeing these scorched earth mega farms, where there had been these works projects to build massive farming lands, and you can see destroyed irrigation lines from the river, which currently you could actually you'd actually be able to see the river from the road on your right. So currently it's just sort of like every now and then between the whips of snow you can see like kind of this really dark water and these patches of ice flowing in it, piercing through the snow-covered lands around you. And just beyond them, occasionally you'll see the glimmer of the mountains up above them. That you can see every now and then. I'd say at least Curon, and only Curon can see this really. You see the sides of the mountain, and you see the peaks are really extraordinarily tall, almost like spikes as opposed to full kind of mountain ridges, and they glitter with this opalescent shimmer across them, which is unusual even for, say, Elysia, where the mountains are certainly interesting, but not this interesting. They seem to be inundated with something. And every now and then you would see through the snow the forest and the grasslands just be in the meadow just beyond, and the trees. You'll see typical trees that are completely barren of leaves in this winter months, but the evergreen trees that you see over there, their needles and leaves, they are a mixture of green. You see some of them are blue. And then some beyond the blue are glittering a pale white. And it's not snow on the branches, it's the leaves themselves. And then every now and then you see one where the bark is not typical hide, scaly bark. It is inundated with a glittering energy, an opalescence across it. The bark itself is a dull gray, but there seems to be almost a sheen over it, as if there were oil spilling down the bark. It reminds you of the trees in the Bordnari Hollow, but more alive and less husk-like. And there's none of those growing tumors on them that you see in the Bordnari Hollow. But as far as you can all see, if there's any danger out there, it's beyond your vision or hearing. You mostly just hear the whipping wind, the rushing river. Every now and then, the cracks and movements of what could be wildlife out there, or it could be someone tracking you, but it's hard to see otherwise. And much of your day is like this. As the clouds start to darken, you can see the iris of the dark star dipping over the mountains in the horizon. But as you start to move, you're getting closer and closer to the river with the road, so you can see more and more of the other side. And you see over there is this very lush forest at the roots of this mountain. You can all, at this point, later on in the day, start to see the things Curon saw. Trees that look like they've been blasted with magical energy, or just kind of changed in some way. Unnatural-looking trees mingled with normal trees or dead trees. And then every now and then you would see, just sort of jutting up from the snow, barely visible under the blankets of snow, are ruins of settlements. A lot of them, actually. They're pretty rampant over there. Collapsed columns, old foundations, ruins that definitely are old. They're not things that have any wood left to them or anything like that. It's only any stone left of these structures.
Cal,
Yes.
the storm's getting pretty rough. Can we find some shelter or something?
Yes, please.
Sean,
Yes.
in my estimation, how bad is this going to keep getting worse, or is this the worst it's going to get? And how are our horses doing?
The horses, I would say, are definitely, their stamina is decreasing quickly. And for you, you've experienced enduring winters, and they are just as harsh as the north. There's no kind of giving way, even if you are in the south. It's not likely to let up for a while. This is a storm that you'd have to probably see if you can make it to morning before it gets warmer or stops. And worst case, it could start to escalate. It's shown no sign of giving up.
Okay, I'm going to start looking for a copse of trees or a dell, or even some form of crevasse.
Yeah, give me a I'll say perception or investigation, your choice.
Okay.
Wiswick and the golem are just like.
And if anyone would like
pointing
to
towards all
help
the
him,
relics.
you can give him advantage.
Yeah, I'll help by looking out too.
I rolled a 20, a dirty 20.
Nice. I would say, you kind of travel maybe half hour more, and you would be able to notice, not so much on the left side of the road. You're finding, well, actually, no. I'll give you a few choices with a dirty 20. On the left side of the road, you find that there is a somewhat burnt out barn that could provide some cover from the road and surroundings. On the left, I'd say you can find some copse of trees there, and they kind of dip down from the road towards the riverbanks. So it is a little bit lower. So you can choose to be out in the wilderness and a little bit kind of obscured by the hill and the copse of trees, or you can choose to make a home out of the semi-burnt out farmhouse.
We're going to this that copse. We're going to copses.
Okay. So you start to lead the horses down the side of the road into the ravine there, as it starts to get a little thicker with trees. But because of the winter and the snow, it's pushed down a lot of the duff and tall grasses of the area, so it's fairly easy to find flat ground here to tie the horses up. It is winter, so the copse of trees will provide you with some cover, but not super big, but dipping down gives you cover from the road. You're pretty close to the river too if you need fresh water. And I'd say at this point when you get down here, you can really see the other side of the river. And the trees are massive over there. Everything looks big from a distance, but up close, they truly are magnificent, 100 foot tall, 150 feet tall trees with thick trunks. And you can see some of them have this wiry light shooting up the trunks and that effervescent, opalescent shimmer across them. And you can see those ruins there as well. You can see kind of like a circular foundation, some pillars. It looks like there was whatever civilization, like they had structures all up and down the Lapis River. And in the mountains themselves, you can all see now with the opalescent shimmer across the stonework of it. But you can begin settling your camp. What would you all like to do?
As soon as we are settled, I would like to sit down and just produce a tiny flame, not a huge one, but just enough to just like huddle around, just to provide some warmth.
Cal would turn around and go, don't stop moving. If your legs freeze, you're not going to be able to get up. As he's building a windbreak for the horses.
Okay,
Excellent.
I'll get up and walk around with my flame.
And Timber's gonna go to Kieran and be like, Kieran, can you bless us with Ilyavannis?
Yes, of course. Once we've finished, and Kieran would have been helping Cal with his windbreak.
Gotta protect Rocco.
Yes, exactly. The whole time he's looking at Rocco, being like, "You're the only thing I truly love in this world." What?
Rude.
Wiswick's just enamored by that mountainscape that you mentioned. he wishes he could write it down or like sketch it, but it's too cold to be doing something like that. His paper will get damp. So he's just I don't know, just keeping an eye on it, trying to decipher what type of like structure it's made out of, if it's something magical or if it's some sort of crystal that's up there that's making it so tall and sharp.
Yeah, give me an Arcana check with disadvantage though, because you're at a distance and don't really have much going through besides your observations.
Sure.
Curon, these mountains are as tall as the Sinvosi peaks, which you haven't. The mountains down here have been, in your opinion, a bit weak compared to
Not
the
quite
Sinvosi
as-
peaks.
The Sinvosi up in Elysia, but I guess they'll do.
But the mountains here, the Unduran mountains, are reflecting that majesty.
I would say as Kieran is helping Cal, he would, once we resolve Wiswick's role, I guess.
Sure, Wiswick, what'd you get?
19.
Nice. Undeniably, there's magical effects over there. In your observations, there is the trees very clearly, undoubtedly. There is because they don't. In your experience in the Underdark, you can identify bioluminescence pretty easily. These trees are not demonstrating natural bioluminescence. Besides, it's not something that would typically be seen this early in the day. Although, granted, you have a perplexing understanding of the long dark because you've never actually experienced it before. This is your first time experiencing winter, really.
Mm-hmm.
You've actually never.
I was gonna say it was snowing when I first came to the surface, but that's fine.
True. This is not your first experience with winter. This is your second experience with winter. That's a very good.
I like it less the second time.
Much worse this time. Like the last time, you only really experienced winter for like 2 weeks. But undoubtedly, the trees are magical. The mountain, I'd say you really sit there and watch it for a while, and you can start to notice that the opalescent color kind of shimmers and moves a little bit every now and then, hinting that it is not necessarily an innate feature of the mountain.
Interesting. Can I collect a sample of the ooze or whatever it is?
Not on this side of the river.
Okay. So the trees that are near us are normal.
The copse of trees you're all in. Everything on this side of the river is completely normal. Yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier. But yeah, everything on this side of the Lapis tributary is normal. Sure.
Holding a number of branches, passing them to Cal as he stacks them. Kieran just kind of standing there holding them while Cal does all the real work. He goes, "So tell me, Caliph, that land across the river there, it's quite peculiar. What stories do your people tell of it?"
That's the Chromatus hinterlands. To be honest, most of the stories about it are cautionary tales for children not to, usually not to run away from home and run. The point is, don't go in there. It's very dangerous. I think most of those tales, frankly, are born in truth in this case. Certainly beautiful looking, I suppose, but it's very, very dangerous.
Have you been there before?
Where the fuck did you come from?
I've been here the whole time.
No, I have not been there before. As I said, we don't really go in there. It's exceedingly rare, I would say, if at all. I don't know of anyone in my lifetime who's gone in.
Yeah,
Well, if no one goes in, how can you be sure it's dangerous?
Because no one comes out.
Kieran, you would actually look over at him saying this, and you would see there are beach boats and rowboats and other assortments there that are all just sort of overgrown. You actually see just like debris in the kind of rough rocks of the western shore of this river. Like there's evidence just from looking of people having gone over there. That's beyond just the old stone ruins, but no evidence of people, corpses, anything, and no stories of anyone returning.
Could I command Jet to just go over the river and come straight back?
Sure.
I do that.
Okay. How far do you want him to go?
Like,
Do you want to go into his mind?
That's actually a really good question. Yes, I do. I want to go into his mind. I think I have 100 feet range on this. How far is the river?
Oh, good point. Good point. I'd say where you all are at the river, it is about it's probably about 50 feet across, so you can get as far as 50 feet into the other side.
Okay, I'm not gonna go 50 feet. I'm gonna go. Basically, I'm gonna try and recover a sample from one of the trees, the closest one.
Sure. Yeah. So you look over there and you can kind of see like a tree there that you're like, I just want a branch of that tree with a leaf on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you send Jet over. You see a tree. It's got this chromatic kind of bark that looks almost like a rainbow moving up it with this glisten on it. The branches, the pines of the needles of the pine are all this mixture of bright blue and white. They almost look like they're all white, but they have kind of a blue overtone when you can look in the shadows of it. Jet starts to fly over and approaches the tree. Do you want to just kind of land on a branch and try to break it off?
I would look for like the thinnest branch
Mm-hmm.
that he could find, and it would be like the sort of thing where he's not really landing. He's just trying to like pull it off. Like he's just using his speed to like rip it off the side.
Yeah. Give me a Constitution saving throw for Jet.
Oh boy. This isn't gonna be good, folks. Okay, so
lives.
I mean,
Sure.
I'm
It's
running
as
out
much
of
incense as you can
Yeah,
buy.
I'm
yeah.
poor. I'm poor, Alex. Okay, so it's gonna add +2 to the roll, but it's really a -1. Keep that at home.
Okay.
It's
For
like
the kids at
Oblivion, where
home.
if you kill somebody, the bounty's only 40 gold. So like,
I swear,
Right.
this dice, this is D&D Beyond, and it's amazing physics engine. It literally landed on one, and it spun around, and never got off the one. Like it just stayed on the one the whole time. So he has a negative. He has a 0. He got a 0.
Okay. So Jet flies over, and you're in his mind, so you're kind of feeling a little bit of his own feelings, and he just you feel nauseous. This Jet immediately feels nauseous as he gets within a foot of any of the tree itself, and he starts to. And anyone looking would see Jet is kind of like erratically flying over there. As he weakly lands on the branch and starts to like kind of pull on it, you're pulling on it as him, and it's kind of like you feel yourself getting tired and tired as he just isn't strong enough to snap the branch, not because the branch is too powerful, but because he's being drained of his constitution, and slowly but surely it slinks down until he has 0 constitution left, and
Didn't take very long.
he just falls and pops out of existence.
Looking from across the river, Kieran turns to Wiswick and goes, "How many is that now?"
Don't talk to me. I just experienced death again.
Right.
Cal chuckles under his breath, or in a quiet way. After how many is that?
Well, at least we learned something.
True. Seems the fate of any that goes over there is to slowly have their life force sapped from them until they're too weak to go on.
I mean, I did say we should go in there, right?
Right, no, I'm not saying we should, but now we have a better idea why.
And Kieran, as you're looking over there, give me a perception check real quick.
Normal, no disadvantage.
Let's do disadvantage because it's still snowing quite a bit. We'll say the disadvantage roll is for beyond the snow, and the the higher roll is for within your eye line within the screen.
24 to 21.
Okay, both good. All right, so I would say as you're looking over, like you can obviously saw Jet do this. You can see kind of like 60 feet across. You kind of look beyond it as you're remarking on its draining effects, and you would see just beyond the tree line is kind of an ivy-covered, vine-covered structure that you can see, and it just looks like a stone pillar that juts through the branches. Like the trees are taller than it, but you're noticing it through the branches, and it just has these aggressive spikes all across it. It literally just looks like an obelisk that has these aggressive spikes all up and down the entire length of it, just sticking out probably about 2 or 3 feet long, made of black stone.
Does it look like anything I've seen before? Reminiscent of anything I might be familiar with? It's okay if it's not. Just
I'm trying to think if it would be. No, it actually wouldn't be.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be. Yeah, no, it wouldn't.
Okay. Then once Cal and Kieran are finished with that windbreak for the horses, he's gonna ritual cast Ilyvanya's tiny hut and gesture his companions in and say, "Come, come into the warm embrace of our
So
most
I will
holy."
say it's around 5 p.m.ish right now. So
Okay.
just to just so you know that you'll need to recast it later to make sure it lasts the night.
Right.
But the hut goes up, and you can all find
Scarlet
some warmth.
dives in.
And it's immediately very cozy.
He has turned the temp up a little more than he is usually to
But
accommodate.
even if it was Elysian temperature, it would still feel so much warmer than this.
Right.
But he's made it he's accommodated you Southerners.
It's a crisp 64 degrees Fahrenheit.
The
Or
golem.
sweltering, excuse me, sweltering.
Which, it's 13 degrees outside, so.
The golem lies flat on the ground next to the hut and only sticks his head inside,
Oh.
so Wiswick can continue to teach him things.
Absolutely adorable. I just love the visual, though, if someone does see you guys, of just this golem body on the ground with a just for the head is a massive magic
Bubble.
circle.
You forget that it's all covered in snow, so somebody just made a really big snowman.
It's actually true. If it is snowing and
big
as the
blue
snow
with
whips, yeah.
With a corpse coming out of it.
You know what? Someone passing by would be like, you know what? I've seen stranger things around this river. Okay, so you have settled for the evening. Although it is quite early at this point, you can start making dinner or eating, whatever resources you have. You can relax. Is there anything you'd like to do as you approach the night?
Yeah, so before he even got in the hut, actually, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Cal would have checked our back trail. I
Okay.
would have walked a bit down where we were coming from, in the direction we came from, I should say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like,
there's-
hang out in concealment for a while, just watching the road, and then I would come back for food and
I
warmth.
imagine Cal would also do a little bit of messing around with the trail that was left behind by the horses coming down.
Yeah, for sure. The road from the trail from the road to here, for sure. And then I would walk down the road a bit and watch our six for a while.
Okay, go ahead and give me a perception check while you're hanging out there.
20.
I'll say, how long do you want to do this for?
45 minutes.
45 minutes? Okay, cool.
Right until I think it might be dangerous standing around in the snow, and then I'll come
Good
back.
point. Good point. Yeah. So Cal, you find yourself kind of hanging out up there for 45 minutes. Are you kind of just like putzing around near the road, or are you finding a spot where you can kind of be concealed?
Yeah, no, I am concealed as best as I can.
Okay. Give me
watching the
a
road.
stealth check as well. And I'll say if you are hiding amongst the kind of... Actually, no, just give me a normal stealth check.
21.
Great. I'd say during that 45 minutes, there's very little happening. You kind of looking out. What was your perception? 20?
Yeah.
20? Cool.
Mhm.
I would say you notice only two things. One, kind of during the beginning of it, you kind of just see this a cart with a torch on it. It has an old man in the front, and then you can actually see there are several Unduras soldiers sitting in the back of the cart, probably around 5 or 6 of them. And it's just moving slowly. They're all wrapped up heavily. It just seems like a transport cart bringing them back home. That's probably just stayed out longer than it should have. They are moving along the road. Their torchlight kind of giving you that wide, dispersed light through the snow and fog, as it is getting much, much darker at this point. The last thing you notice before it pretty much becomes impossible for you to really see much is you do notice probably about kind of, because as it gets closer to night, the wind doesn't stop, but the snow kind of becomes less, it obscures less. Maybe about, you only notice it for a second because the snow is still whipping up. Maybe about 150, 200 feet away, in the farmlands, you see someone is trekking out there. You see some humanoid shape. You can't discern colors. You just see a humanoid shape that seems to be moving across the farmland.
I would get close. I would get closer to at least identify it,
Okay.
and I would do it stealthily, preferably.
All right. Give me a stealth check, and then
Just
give me a perception check with disadvantage as the sunlight starts to dwindle.
Can I put my goggles on?
Yes, but it'll still give you disadvantage because it's still...
Yeah, fair.
The goggles are actually what lets you even roll.
10, 10, 10.
Okay. So you 10 for stealth, or
Yeah.
21 for stealth?
Yes.
And then 10 for perception. Cool. You lose them. You start to stealth into kind of up onto the road and across into the farmland, and as you're kind of trekking across, you dip down for a moment, and then you bring yourself back up, and they're gone. They're gone.
Are these active farmland?
No. As you get closer to the next town, there is going to be active farmlands. These farmlands have, like, you're still in the area where they were scorched and attacked before the lines were drafted for the war. There will be active farmlands soon, but to your point, though, there shouldn't be people walking out in the farms alone because there's no one in these houses.
Then I'm going to go back to my position on the road, and I'm going to wait to see if anyone crosses for a while.
So longer than the 45 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
All right. How long do you want to stay?
It was 5. That brought us up to, like, I'll stay for
So
another...
after setting up the camp, it's around 6 o'clock now.
I said till 7.
So 7? Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a quick Constitution saving throw.
Apparently that's a 9.
Okay. So while you're waiting, you do suffer a point of exhaustion. I will not have that count against your perception check, though, for this hour. You can still roll. Well, I guess, no, it's disadvantage because it's so dark out. So disadvantage perception roll.
12.
12. Okay. So you're keeping an eye out, and it's at this point it's pretty dark out. And for those of you back at the camp, like, you can kind of see through the dim opaqueness of the dome. You can see it's quite dark out now. Cal's been gone for an hour and 45 minutes. But Cal, you don't really see too much. The only thing that kind of towards the end of your watch out there you see is the trees, the copse of trees, and some of the other trees in the area. Not all of them kind of intermingled with the dying trees and the fir trees and all of that. You see they start to light up. Now this is something you're very familiar with. Those of you in the hut, not familiar with at all. There are these particular trees mingled with the other trees. They have a very odd shape. They look windswept, where they grow kind of in a curve, and all their branches go to one side, and just sort of almost look like hair in the wind or something in the wind. But they're covered in these long, flexible, prehensile pine needle-looking foliage, and in the night they start to blow in the wind and they light up. And if you were looking out, you would see these bright turquoise lights littering the air around you. As you would see some of these long strands that make up the foliage. If you were to look closer, they're actually more akin to pine cones. These long fronds. They have little seedlets that are what's lighting up right now, and they're starting to flutter up into the sky, creating this wavy, almost like a simulacrum of the northern lights moving through the air in the breeze. And you would start to hear as there would be these flying creatures that just start to fly through the cloud of seedlings, eating them. It's a particular breed of tree that prospers in the long dark. As it releases its seeds at night, they glow and they attract a very particular breed of bat that eats these seeds and then spreads them through their dung. But it's very beautiful, and it is where... Guano, thank you. It is where the... it's one of the many reasons why Untduras gets the name the Glittering Dale. It's quite beautiful, but you don't see anyone passing around or near the camp. Interestingly enough, although maybe Cal doesn't know this, but these trees are actually fungi. And yeah, they have a very complicated life cycle that I spend too much time thinking of.
If only Wiswick saw them.
When you were describing that, I had a very Morrowind look in my head.
I can see that, yeah.
Where everything is just not quite a tree. Like, what
Exactly.
is that?
Yeah, it's like, wait, that looks fleshy.
Yeah.
Wiswick, you did see it. You guys can see through the dome. So you could all see this glittering wave of seedlings in the sky. It very much so reminds you of home, Huron, but not because of their similar seedlings, but because your home is covered in actual northern lights that move through the valley of Elysia.
How beautiful.
Wiswick's just fascinated by the natural phenomena. So anything fungus is interesting to him, so he's
Scarlet
just
is too.
taking notes.
Such natural beauties of our lands. You'd hardly think so much bloodshed is happening to the north when you see such grace.
Timber knows that those plants aren't useful for anything, so he's not really.
They are useful for something, but you don't need it.
Oh
They're
my
useful for
god!
Yeah, they're useful for making exactly what you'd think. Potions of light that can create. You can create different serums that light up, so you could fill vials with it to create light torches and things like that.
Oh.
If you gather enough of them, you could do other things, but Timber wouldn't really know those things. Oh, actually, no. I mean, Timber, technically you're from Untduras, because Drak is technically within Untduras' territories, although it doesn't fall under their governance.
Could Wiswick surmise some of those things just from his fungal knowledge?
Yeah, you would know that many alchemists in the Underdark use the natural chemicals within organisms that are bioluminescent to create long-lasting illuminating items. So there's, gloom torches in the Underdark, which are essentially torches, but the tip of the torch is pretty much just covered with these chemicals so that it just glitters and glows for a much longer time than a burning torch would.
So that other practical use was just extended duration?
the most practical use is it lasts a lot longer than fire, and it doesn't require fuel like fire. Like you don't have to collect resin for a torch. You don't have to, you can just, if you just need light, they're very useful.
Could I command the golem to just stand up and reach his hand up as high as he can and grab
Yeah.
some?
I would allow that, actually. You do see a moment where the golem, 'cause it does have a mind of its own, and it will do what you're commanding, but anyone watching would hear as it moves over to where this sort of cloud is moving out, and you hear as you look, and you can see the golem is jumping and running its hands through it, trying to catch as much of these seedlings as it can. You see at one point it absolutely smacks one of these bats out of the air, though. And you hear a very loud squeal, and that thing does not get up off the ground because it just got smacked by a freaking 12-foot tall earth golem. But it would come back, and its hands would be kind of like covered in within all the crevices of the stones. The seeds have gathered, and it just has glowing hands. And you can see it's just going.
Whoa, wait! Those are samples. Those are precious. Careful. So yeah, I help clean them up and collect as much as I can off of them. Unfortunately, I didn't stock what do you call it, telekinesis, or I would have used it earlier.
Yeah, and as you're out there, because you'd have to step out to gather this, you're kind of scraping seedlings into vials and into bags. You're able to gather quite a lot of them, which will be very useful. I'll say, for the sake of brevity, you get in total 65 seedlings. 65 of these seedlings.
All right, great.
Yeah. And as you're kind of standing out there, like, you would all notice, like, Oriel, like, stepped out. Not with him. He just, like, steps out into the cold and is just kind of staring up at these lights, and seemingly in, like, a very, like, reverent way, bearing the cold to witness this unobscured, as he's staring up at the lights and just the world around. I'd say at this time, Cal, you're coming back from your watch, as you notice Oriel standing there, watching the lights above that you also noticed.
Governor.
Yes, Lieutenant.
You should get inside, sir. It'll be, well, it's not good to be out here for too long, sir. The cold.
Understood. Did you see anything out there?
Some soldiers returning on the cart. They should have passed you a bit ago. There was some motion out by the abandoned farmland across the road, about 2 miles that way. I wasn't able to investigate further. It was pretty far out. So we'll keep a close watch tonight and stay in the cover of the hut, which luckily is fairly well defended through Huron and his god.
I trust you, Lieutenant. I suppose we shall retire.
Excellent, sir. Cal does one more dramatic look into the distance before following the governor.
Yeah, literally, as the governor walks away, walks across camera, it's a wipe, as Cal's.
Yeah.
And follows. All right, so around this time, it's around 6:37. You're all enjoying your dinners. Is there anything anyone would like to do this evening before resting?
Yeah, Wiswick's just doing his normal thing. He's teaching the golem, collecting notes about this strange. He's very interested in the forest across the way. He knows he can't take any more information about it, but he's looking back at his old notes, seeing if there's anything he remembers, if the mountain has any relation to possibly the crystals that he found in the Modenari, whatever. Hollow.
Oh, you mean the crystals you found in Terramron?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Cool.
Kieran's gonna recast the hut before we retire for the evening.
So it lasts through the night.
I'll do a little, just a little doodling before going to bed.
I imagine within this hut, because as much as the temperature is comfortable, like the hut's not inherently comfortable. So like some of you are kind of like nestling it's very, very much like a normal, like how experience is in a tent, in the sense of like you've got those really, really sloping sides that make it kind of uncomfortable to stand up or move around. But I imagine you're all kind of at the edges of it in a circle. You know, the very dim light of the huts, and then occasionally maybe a fire from Scarlet, as you all find your positions and tasks.
Shannon, you're hot, Mike.
We got some room tone coming from you, Shannon. It's all good. As you know, Oriel would look around and just sort of comfortably smile. But yeah, it's warm enough, but not particularly comfortable. Are you guys doing any watches? All right, who is on first watch? If you're doing watches, we got Scarlet.
You know what? I'll do first watch too.
Scarlet and Wiswick. All right.
Because I want to extend the amount of time I can teach the golem things before he disappears.
Yeah. Who's on second watch?
Cal.
Okay. I imagine Huron will take the last watch if he wants to, or do you want to do the middle?
I'll take the last one.
Cool. All right.
Timber might wake up early.
Okay. Timber wants to wake up a little early.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll allow you to kind of crash as people are like, "Who wants to take watch?" Timber's like immediately zonked out. But he's also a little bit hungover today, so I imagine he'd fall asleep pretty quickly. All right, Scarlet and Wiswick. Both of you give me perception checks with disadvantage for your watch. And if there's anything you want to do during this time.
9.
Wiswick, you can have Jet do the watch if you want, which won't have disadvantage.
Okay. He got. So that's 16 plus 1 is 17. Also, I am out of familiars.
Oh no.
This is my last Jet for a while.
All right, so Jet's, I imagine Jet's just hanging out on top of the dome, maybe occasionally flying up during your 2 hours. Is there anything the two of you would like to do during this time? As far as your personal watches, Wiswick, obviously Jet's doing it for you, so you can do whatever you want. Scarlet is dark.
It's dark.
The glittering seedlings have somewhat stopped their light. There's every now and then little tiny ones that almost remind you of fireflies in the summer, except you know there's no way there's living insects out there in the cold. You occasionally might hear some sounds that are reminiscent of wildlife, perhaps, out there, which in your mind even makes you think, like, what the hell is out there in this cold? Like, you're sitting there being like, I hope it's more of those freaking cows.
I think I'll be, just kind of not really paying attention, but like every so often she'll look up, she'll be looking or just doodling and practicing her calligraphy, and then she'll look over at the at Wiswick, and Wiswick, does it know all of our names yet?
Yeah. I taught it to him once. He's really good at remembering things, so I kind of just gave him nicknames. I'm sorry. I probably didn't give him the whole full thing, you know.
What did you tell him Scarlet's name was?
It's just Scarlet, Cal, Doggy, and Kieran.
Scarlet, while you're saying this to him, you notice, you look over and the head, it just has these glowing orange eyes. It doesn't have a mouth that moves. And it just goes, Scarlet.
Oh my goodness. I mean, yes, that. What? Is that what it sounds like?
Scarlet.
Yes.
You just hear like vibrating noises from it and
We're
cracking noises.
still working on his common. I mean, if you tell him to do something, he might listen. He only knows a few things, you know, like sit, stay, go, attack, hide.
Well, is there anything you might need help with teaching?
I'm kind of lacking a lot of the surface culture studies. I've tried to give him the basics, but I mean, it's kind of hard to teach him if you don't know his native language.
Sure.
You see,
But-
you hear kind of and look over in the dim light. Oriel is still awake, and he interrupts. Goes, "Oh, it's an impressive development, Wiswick. It seems to have learned so much, even just within the short time that I've known you, the last day or two. Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. I told those last night. You live long enough with elves, and you tend to adopt their sleeping schedules."
That's all right. I recognize your accent. I meant to talk to you about it earlier, but you're not from around here, are you?
And you see he closes whatever book he was reading, puts it away, and wraps himself up. You know, if for like aesthetics of the hut, I imagine it's like if you've ever been camping and you have those really crappy like very small lanterns that you have that you turn on.
Yep.
And it just puts a very dim light in the room, harsh shadows coming off of it.
Yep.
Everyone looks terrible. Oh, well, I thought I might have pinpointed your accent as well. Eastern Oxland, countryside. Those old mining towns by the Gap of Fiona.
Impressive. Yes, I'm from a town called Cindermire.
Cindermire. Quaint place.
I thought so.
Yes, I am not from here. I've spent my adult life in the Gwyn Empire. Last 18 or so years I've lived there. But, yes, no, I grew up close to Caer Dolan. Court's there. Not been back quite a while.
What made you leave?
Circumstances at the time. Let's just say it wasn't safe for me there. Well, I suppose I wanted a change of scenery. And the Gwyn was so gracious to include me in their society.
Can understand that.
I do miss it. You grow up somewhere and it becomes foreign to you and distant. It has a tendency to affect your memories, so to speak.
She kind of looks off into the distance at that.
much more beautiful in my memories than I'm sure it is today.
You seem to know a lot. Are you well traveled?
Well, I received quite an education in my youth, and I have traversed north and south of Quintaki, of course, and my time in the Empire, of course, was spent in privilege. I was able to learn from some truly great men and women. Their philosophies are more forward-thinking than the Quintaki and many other lands.
I don't expect a noble such as yourself ended up near the Badlands at any point.
Braxis, you speak.
Wizard, we don't need to talk about this.
Why not? He seems pretty knowledgeable.
Harsh lands were difficult to travel, even more difficult to settle. The Empire has been trying to establish settlements on the shores in the north for eons, but the uprooted realm of the elements scar that land. The center of Paraxis is a nexus of other worlds. It's where the remnants of the elemental planes pierce through our veiled world and spill out like guts over the Badlands. Now they contest the lands in violent war between each other. Seemingly little care for the rest of the world, thankfully.
Do you know why anyone would want to, I don't know, traverse them?
I'd see no reason, unless they live there, or from there. There are undoubtedly great mysteries in those lands and great treasures, but and knowledge to be learned from the elemental lords there. But it's best to leave them to their own chaos. As long as they do not bother us. Within the Gwyn Empire, we do not bother them. Though group movements have been made through the western Paraxis Peninsula to attempt to invade Oxland in the eastern front.
Well, thank you for your knowledge.
Of course. That hammer you have there,
Oh,
if I'm not mistaken, it's the script of Fearsol, the smith, right? You follow
quite astute. Not per se. People who are important to me are. I know of them, but I don't practice.
Oh well. You don't need practice to feel connection to any god or faith. Knowing that those you love believe or find some comfort in the gods, well, that is you finding comfort in the gods as well.
I suppose.
Your soul is a noble beast. Stories recount his excellence, brilliance, intelligence, craftsmanship.
My father used to tell me those stories. Me
A
and
brighter
my
world.
brother.
A brighter world of more honor to the old gods.
You ever hear of the diamond in the rough?
I can't say I have.
I thought not.
Little knowledge. We have some knowledge in the Green Empire of the histories of the Underdark, but not a lot about your religions, your gods.
It's not an easy thing to discover nowadays. Lost knowledge. Hopefully, if I keep working with my buddy here, and I tap my golem on the head, he might shed some insight on some long lost questions that I have.
As the golem turns its head to look at Coriel. Well, as you said earlier tonight, or today, if you gain enough power, I suppose you can gain enough knowledge, information. I was not lying when I said I would very much love to see, or hope to see, whatever lands you create with your curiosity.
It's just a fanciful dream. I doubt I'll ever really be able to settle down. Too many questions left unanswered. So many places to explore. I mean, just look here. We found such wonders just sitting down to camp. The surface has so much to explore and discover. I mean, it's a shame that my people have not experienced it more.
Well, equally our experience on the surface, we have not understood or experienced the wonders of the deep worlds and the deep places. Sure, there are glittering caves beneath that we would eye with wonder, as you have with our glittering dale.
I mean, take it from a guy that's seen most of it. It's not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, well, neither is the surface. Suppose you wouldn't like talking about this, as he looks over to Scarlet. Your companion Curon had mentioned some. Actually, no, you didn't mention that Scarlet was Tatra's sister.
It would have been that awkward thing where he's like, yes, well, Scarlet, and then he looks back and she's staring daggers. Happened to meet this individual named Thad. And that
Okay. So instead of that, he would just say to the both of you then, well, I received some opinions from you, Wiswick, earlier, but Scarlet, what do you make of Curon's quest, this pallid mask, this end of the world? How do you feel about it?
Well, it's quite a lot to wrap my mind around. But we have had experience with the mask, and I would like to rid the world of it. For more reasons than just Curon's.
Oh. So you have personal stake in this crusade?
Unfortunately. Stole someone from me.
Pallid mask.
Yes. I don't know how, I don't know when or why. I just know it happened.
Someone close to you.
Yes.
I won't pry. How do you feel, both of you, about being, in the words of Huron, chosen? Do you feel like champions of the Crescent Heart?
No. Never thought I'd be chosen for anything. Maybe.
Yeah, it's all poppycock, if you ask me.
I wouldn't go that far.
You seemed quite fervent earlier today, Wiswick.
You know, everybody wants to consign you to some, obligation. They say you're destined. They say we have similar ideologies. They're all just trying to get you to do what they want. They never see the big picture.
Well, skeptical mind is important. I spoke to Huron just last night about the gods, divines, divinity, they're elsewhere. They're not here. We don't experience this world, and they ask much of us. The gods are to be respected, of course.
Of course.
But we should never rely on them. It's more often than not we're in this on our own. And if this tide is coming to rise above us all, well, like I said earlier, we need friends.
Almost out of nowhere, she was listening, but like as soon as he finished that sentence, do you think we're chosen? I mean, I can see why Ilyvania would choose Kiron, but and I guess Wiswick and the rest of them, but I don't know. I don't know why me. I'm sorry, that's personal. You don't have to answer.
I'm happy. I'm happy to. I don't think there have been countless men, women, everyone, countless chosen ones over many years in all the texts. And perhaps you are. Perhaps we all are. Because we are here. During this time. Do I believe you're all holy crusaders here to save the world? Not yet.
You say it like that, no.
But I am curious. You certainly piqued my interest. Perhaps you are. Perhaps you're not. And I think, ultimately, he looks to both of you and then to those sleeping. It doesn't matter. You're chosen or not. If these end times are coming, we must do something.
Right. If the gods are willing to help, we're willing to be their chosen.
Well, I suppose that's right. That's a possibility. Your willingness to help others is admirable. The days will tell. But for now, I believe it is time for the next watch. You two should get your rest.
Scarlet smiles and goes to wake up. Who's next?
Cal.
Yeah, I'll go wake up Cal.
Eyes snapping open. Cal immediately steps up, nods to
Not used to
Scarlet.
that. It's nothing.
Wiswick, all Jet would have seen and heard.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah. I'd say the only thing Jet saw that would have been of note would be he did see. I mean, granted, mostly he's paying attention to hearing, but he can see. It's hard to hear much in the wind, especially for a bat, but he does see across the river. He does see sets of eyes glowing back that you presume are some kind of wildlife over there. Like, what is it? Lattice pupillum or whatever, which is the reflection of light in animals' eyes. The curious thing, though, is that there are animals over there. That it is not completely barren of life besides the trees. But you do notice there is something across the way.
Would this be like almost immediately or while we were talking?
I'd say it'd be throughout the time. Jet would be keeping an eye on this. Whatever
yeah.
it is doesn't stick around very long.
Okay. Before conking off, he goes up to Cal and says, "There's something in those woods. Besides what we've already discovered. Jet detected some flashes of eyes across the way. They don't seem to be hostile, but they're waiting, hoping that we cross over, most likely. I wonder what could survive in those woods."
I'm not the one to ask, my friend, but I definitely don't know. I can tell you the stories were mostly giant monsters or the occasional, witch. But like I said, those were mostly children's stories.
Perhaps there's some sort of fungal entity, like we've seen in the past, possessing what once was those creatures. I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's a wild leap, I would imagine, but sure. I have nothing to refute that.
I'll think more about it. Get back to you tomorrow if I got any more realistic options.
Cal throws a cloak or whatever on and steps outside to do a perimeter search.
Oriel returns to his book as he smiles and laughs at your exchange with Cal as the two of you find your rest. Cal, give me a perception check for your watch.
Clay, I know you're paying. It just did the same thing. It was just a 3 the entire time. Just spun as a 3 around. and
Yeah,
still
how
a
does that
3.
even work?
So 7.
Okay. Honestly, for the most part, your watch is really... It's really to have someone be awake in case something happens. You're not really going to be able to see much. Even if you rolled pretty high, you'd still have some difficulty seeing. As you're stepping out, you kind of take a moment out there. Maybe you have a cigarette out there at some point, and you're just kind of... For the most part, Cal, you're just feeling the bite against your cheeks as you're looking at and seeing maybe some glittering from moonlight above on the river, staring up the road to see nothing but darkness over this 2 hours, occasionally whipping your head at the sound of a snapping branch. Your instincts still geared towards the trenches and being out there. The dark and the wind and the fog usually brings death and destruction. But out here, it's just cold. What would you like to do?
Just doing the watch, then I'm going back.
Okay. When you come back, Oriel is still awake inside. He seems to be settling and getting ready to sleep himself. He looks to you and just says, some excellent fighting back in the line there, Lieutenant. Good form, mingled with some contemporary war, of course.
Cal gives him a bit of a tight-lipped, almost the look I was just giving, but I have to describe it for the listeners if anyone's not watching. A very tight-lipped, just kind of like he nods at him, like, mm-hmm. You know, like, the face that I have on is very clearly like, yeah, let's not talk about that, man. Like, well, I don't know why you bring this up, you fucking weirdo. And then I sit back down, making sure that Kieran is waking up.
The last thing Oriel would really say to you is just, imagine as the Lord of Stormrain you were trained. By whom?
Shit, what's his first name?
Yeah, that's right.
Did he
might
have
this in my
He
notes.
does have a first name, but I always...
I forget it all the time. Aaron. Master Aaron. That's his last name.
Harlan. I suppose you may want to visit him when we reach Vamosia.
If he's still there, I plan on looking him up at least for a bit.
A great instructor. Renowned. Across the Empire.
Yes, sir. He definitely looked out for me when I was younger.
Certainly an instructor any student would cherish.
Indeed, sir.
Well, good resting to you, Lieutenant. See you in the morning.
He was well, sir. Making sure that Kieran's awake. Cal gives him the news that nothing happened in the night, and my head hits whatever I'm using as a pillow, and I'm out.
Huron. For your last portion of the evening.
Marco. His first name's Marco.
Marco. That's
Polo?
right, Marco Arlen. Huron. Oriel is bedding down as you wake up, as well as Cal. Is there anything particular you'd like to do during your watch besides watch?
Kieran. Nah, he's just gonna watch.
Okay. Give me
You know, maybe
perception.
do his normal prayers to Ilyuvania. You know, just like, hey, Crescent Heart, just checking in. Hope everything's okay. Sean, that'll be a 31 for my perception check.
Okay.
Unless am I at disadvantage?
Technically you would be. So go ahead and give me another one.
28. My apologies.
That 3 less is really gonna screw you over. Yeah, you kind of wrap yourself up and you're kind of, sitting by the edge of the bubble, keeping an eye out, maybe occasionally walking around as your companions sleep. The night is pretty quiet. You find yourself gazing up into the sky as the winds keep whipping, but you can still somewhat see the skies above. Clouds are moving quickly. Nights during the long dark have a strange brightness to them compared to the days because of the moons through the clouds. You can almost see rays of heaven, but moonlight in the distance. as you think for a moment, you see something. It looks like a small light. Bluish, whitish, much brighter than the trees you can see scintillating across the river. You're staring at it for a long time and then it disappears. It's probably a couple miles away. You ponder it before immediately becoming distracted by the orange glow of campfire directly outside your hut.
Like directly.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And it sounds almost like it appeared. You look over and you see a humanoid figure sitting by this fire.
Karen walks to the edge of the hut closest to the thing, and sound can go through the hut. Looking at the humanoid,
Mm-hmm.
any other descriptions that you can give
Yeah,
me?
I'll give you. Yeah, their back is to you.
Mhm.
You're looking through the etherealness of the hut. They obviously can't necessarily see you. Their back is to you. They're leaning, hunched over. You see they have kind of like a stick in their hand that they seem to have burned the end of on this fire that's appeared there. They're in rags completely. You see a bald head that you can just barely make out on the edges where the light wraps around, some tattoos. And that's mostly what you can make out. There, you see the frizz of what looks like a long beard on the other side.
Is there a way I could like expend an extra spell slot to keep the hut up while I go out to interact with this individual?
I would allow it.
Okay, cool. What level spell slot do you want me to burn? 5th? I'll
highest.
do it. I'll do
Your
it.
highest.
Kieran's kind of like, hey, Crescent Hot, asking for a quick favor here. I feel like something narratively important is about to happen. If you could keep this bubble up for my friends, I don't want them to catch a cold. Yeah, okay.
You hear in your mind, like, ah, fine.
I will expend my highest level spell slot just for you, Lupania.
You're the best.
No, you. And after this strange, almost fourth wall breaking interaction, Kieran exits the hut and walks around the individual, sits on the other side of this small fire, cross-legged, and reaching out as if to warm himself by this fire, though not entirely needing it. It is cold for Kieran, as I'm sure you'll let me know, but he's been cold before. So he puts his hands out, and without even looking at the individual, he says, "The nights here are quite lovely, with the floating lights cast by these trees. I've only ever seen something like this back home in Alicia."
As you're looking and staring at this fire that's appeared out of nowhere, you're sitting on a log, like a small log that is appearing out of nowhere. You can see kind of the embers at the end of this stick that this figure is twisting in their hands. As you're kind of not looking in their face but looking down, you would notice at their wrists and at their ankles are ethereal chains that seem to go to nothing. I have not been here in a long time. Even now I feel these chains pulling me back.
Did you wander this plain before? Did you see the people working and toiling the fields, the lands, going about their lives before you decided to disrupt it with your machinations?
He looks up, and he isn't looking at you. He's staring at the embers at the end of this stick that he's burning. He blows on it to blow out some flames that ignite, keeping it a little bit just embers burning down. Almost like a child playing with a stick. My memory is dimmed over the years. I remember this continent, these people. Different. This whole land was something different. I had my servants here as well as all the law. And I walked these fields once. Before the mountains glittered in the night, and the trees burned. The fire. Yes. Yes, I saw them, and I saw them again, and again, and again. As they wandered the fields of death. I've seen each and every face. And I will see each and every face until the end. That you have called me here with your questions.
Yes. I didn't realize you would actually come, though. I appreciate the face-to-face nature of this meeting. I asked you, a wayward one, for help. When we last met, do you remember? It was brief, but I came to the fields of the dead. You guided me a short way before I was ripped away from you by one of your agents, Fuelum by the name of Myas, where I endured centuries of torment, torture. But unlike many of the other victims that you cursed to that existence, I was saved by my friends. And now live simply to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else. Do you remember?
And he'll look past the embers on the stick to you now, looking you directly in the eyes. And you can
I
see...
imagine.
You see, like, in the darkness, the eyes that were an impossibly pale blue in the fields of death now glow an impossible blue. Very much the same color as the ethereal chains at his wrists and legs. I remember it all, of course. I remember those creatures. I remember the spread of the shadow. And taking in their power. I remember the deaths and the spirits in agony. Their screams do not leave me. Ever.
Good. Nor should they. You doomed thousands to eternal suffering for something you failed to accomplish then. And whether you are actively pursuing it now, it will not come to pass. But I apologize. I should not hold you to the sins of your past. You've come here, and I hope you've come with answers. So please, oh Hadric, let's talk about your harbinger. For that may be the most pressing foe that threatens this plane.
Mortal. All of divinity should be judged on the sins of their past. You do not share the crusade of my previous self. In fact, in my age, I see little value in conflict. I see only death. The Harbinger is, at his heart, just a man. A man of my flesh, empowered, but still just a man.
Well, then maybe there's less to worry about him than I originally thought.
He stays beyond. In Kassari, he can do nothing to this world. If that threshold is opened, I'm afraid he'll bring in whatever remains in those halls and prisons.
Threshold? What threshold do you speak of? Between our worlds? The barrier?
When you see the planes of existence, they brush against one another in the infinite sea. But Kassari is not part of the infinite bubbles floating in the cosmos. It is outside, beyond its own ring of reality. There's only one place in this world where anything can go in and out of that world. And last I knew or saw before my imprisonment was that place was isolated, locked off, sealed forever.
And what place might that be?
High in the sky, above craterous city, burnt and made of stone and flesh, chittering in the night with darkness and evil. The tower in the sky. At its peak, I saw my end. What I thought was the end before this prison. As I looked up into the darkened shadow of the portal to Kassari, my vision faded. As I saw what you call the conservators around me. in the light of my sister's eyes. Such sorrow and sadness. Far beyond this land, if I recall, as I walked amongst you again. Beyond this Glenvalia, in the ruins and wastes, lays a tower. What has become of your plane of existence these days? So long. In the little time that I have known you, I have felt the energy of your spell. The divine nature of it. Of what you seek.
Yes. The crescent heart guides my hand. Though she is not at the power at which you last saw her.
I would warn we divines, divinity, it is us who are the created, not you. And meeting what you've created can be disappointing. As long as the Harbinger stays beyond this world, he is no threat to you.
I have met some of your old agents. A harvester, I believe, was referred to. That's where we first learned of the Harbinger and feared his coming. Though the more pressing issue, I guess then, the one that I had more information about, is your pallid king. The huarum you planted at the base of the ash tree in the Feywild to consume it. What can you tell me about that entity?
He seems deeply pained by even thinking of this. He was a loyal beast for many centuries. Feist, we called him. He was my father's. Before Nyalogith twisted him. Before Nyalogith twisted me. And he served me even when I fell. And I left him to his fate to rot in the dirt. And his mind to boil and rot. Anger. Fear. You recount my sins, Kuran Ilisrama. This may be my greatest.
Well, I suppose being aware of it is something. But how can we stop it? Even as we speak, Old Fist is corrupting the Feywild more and more each day. Had visions given to me by my goddess as he erupts from the dead ash and leads his legions into this plane. Every night I fall asleep with this vision. Every morning I wake fearing this may be the day. I need to know how I can stop him. Stop it.
And you see as he throws the branch into the fire, and it begins to burn up, and the wind rushes much quicker, and you can see the fire is doing that thing where it almost burns out but doesn't quite in the wind.
Mhm.
And then you hear as you can see the chains at his ankles and arms pulling back. And his arms are lifting up as he's being pulled back where he's from.
Leaving already.
His eyes are staring completely at the fire. And you can see tears start to fall from his eyes as he's being pulled back and the fire goes out. And you see the shadowed face silhouetted by the moon as the chains pull his arms up, sagging. You can't. And then as the chains pull him back, he fades with the wind.
Chiron stares at the spot where the fire was, and then getting up, walks a short distance away, kicks at the snow on the ground, falls to his knees, and just screams out. I'd scream here, but I don't feel comfortable doing that with this. And it would be loud.
yeah.
Some popping would go on.
No, yeah,
But if you
absolutely.
can imagine Aragorn as he kicks the helmet at that scene where he actually breaks his toe, R.I.P. Vigo, Vigo's toe, that is. It would be like that as he drops to his knees, one fist falling into the snow.
You do so, screaming out into the void of the night, all your pain, anguish, the pain and anguish of your death, your torture at the hand of Maias, the death of your goddess, and the one person you thought might be able to give you answers, telling you there are none. As you cry out into this night, each of you hearing this and awakening.
Oh, I said I went a distance off.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So as to not alert my companions.
Cool. No.
So I can contain this.
Yeah. I'll adjust my description. Kiran, you walk quite a ways away to ensure that you do the least damage you can for waking up your compatriots. You find yourself walking upstream or downstream quite a ways, mindlessly stepping through the snow as this anger boils up inside of you, out of the copse of trees. All you're hearing is the whipping wind and the cracking ice of the river, and a light, almost ringing noise that comes from the other shore. As you finally collapse down and scream out into the night with all your pain. Alone in the dark of night. Is there anything else you'd like to do?
He'll wander back eventually, with enough time to make sure no one else is awakened. Re-enter the hut and assume a pose of prayer. But he does not pray this day, as he thinks.
Okay. Time passes as you spend the last of your watch in this meditative state of somewhat emptiness. As the golden ring of the horizon rises, and each of you awake slowly. would you all like to do? Oriel engages in some morning prayers as he wanders away from the camp. Timber, you do wake up before everyone else.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, just letting you know.
Just, yeah. I would like to do some alchemy in the morning.
Okay.
I'd like to do. When you're done with that, Timber, I want to try meditation with you.
Okay. Huron, what are you doing in the morning? Are you just sort of sitting in a stoic state?
Yep. Until the bubble falls, and then he would pack Rocco and just prepare to set off.
So Sean, tell me, when I was taking over my familiar and I crossed over the river, did I feel those draining effects as soon as I crossed over, or once I touched the?
It was when you got like within a couple feet of the tree.
Okay.
Timber, you wanted to do a few alchemy things?
Yes. I am going to roll for trying to make a potion of invulnerability.
Excellent.
19.
All right. Go ahead and roll your alchemy set. Roll.
I'm just gonna roll perception and then add +1. Okay,
Sure,
I
go for
fail
it.
it. Fail it.
Fail it hard.
12.
Yeah. All right.
So
So
I-
anyone looking would see Timber tinkering with this Bunsen burner like contraption that he found way back when in Archduke Orland's basement, as he's slowly like boiling liquids together, and then suddenly you just see this like golden ichor inside of this this vial, and he's like, you can see Timber getting excited for a moment, and then suddenly the glass vial bursts, and all of the liquid puts out the Bunsen burner and seeps into the snow. You can see steam coming off of it as it slowly fades to a dull gray color.
And you see he like takes like this really, really ragged looking like small little book that he opens up, and he's like looking at like what he has, like I thought that was right. I thought fine. And then sorry. File.
I imagine Timber has like a golf pencil too that he writes in this little moldy notebook.
It's very tiny. I'm going to make one more thing, which is the general potion of poison, but I'm going to make it so it has an upgrade with a skin contact toxin.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
The
You
DC
go ahead
of
and use
13,
the,
but it's much easier.
Absolutely. You got the druid sap to do that, so you're good.
Oh, yeah, of course. I know this recipe. I got another natural 20.
You nail it. You've made this plenty of times. You're able to, and it's almost like you ruin this really fucking expensive, nice potion you're trying to make, and you're like, fucking shit, and you're like, I'll just make what I know how to make.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wiswick's going to try again to get some samples from across the way.
Okay.
This time, he's using telekinesis, and he's going to telekinetically move a vial over across the river, and then he's going to collect the. We'll say 2 vials. He collects leaves in one of them, and then in the other he collects the ooze that's coming out of the tree.
Okay.
And then he bottles both of the vials on that end of the river, and then brings them over to the other side of the of his side of the river, bottled up, and then he keeps them a distance away from him so he could feel if there's any effects as he approaches them.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and give me a straight Arcana check.
All right, trying to play this as safe as possible. Come on, decent roll. I believe in you, D&D Beyond. I need this. Yes! Well, how about a 33, nat 20, baby?
What was the total again?
33.
Oh God, 33. Okay. You would feel your magical effects like you start to waver for a moment as soon as it gets close to the tree, as if the effects are permeating and affecting whatever fields of magic are holding the glass, like, and whatever telekinetic energy is interacting with it is for a moment. You can sense this with that high of a roll that it is affected by whatever essence is coming off of these trees. But you are slowly able to take a sample of sap, take a few pine needles into a vial, and you can slowly bring them over if you'd like.
I do that.
Okay.
And when I recover them, they're already, like, vacuumed in. Like, I already put the stopper on the vial.
Mm-hmm.
Do I, like, as I slowly approach them, does anything affect me?
Give me a Constitution saving throw.
Fuck. Sean, I just want it. Is it a magical effect?
Yes.
Sweet, I have advantage, but I didn't roll it. But it's okay, because I got a 16 plus 2 is 18, which is pretty good.
Roll the advantage.
Oh no! Come on, I got a 17 plus 2 is 19!
Okay. When it gets closer to you, you start to feel sick.
I immediately back off.
Okay. You are going to take 1 point of Constitution damage.
Oh my god. Alright. We're talking to the base, right? Not the modifier?
To the base.
Good. How do I even mark this on Beyond?
You don't. You just keep track of it in your head. You'd have to change
Okay.
it in your character itself.
I'm gonna write something specific and then change it. That sucks. Alright. Luckily it
This
doesn't
will
change my
go away with a
modifier.
long rest. This will go away with a long rest. If you
By
kept
the
it
way,
closer, it wouldn't.
You can add a modifier. If you click on Constitution, a little tab comes up on the right, and it says other
Alright, I just
modifiers.
roll-
You could put a -1 there.
Oh, nice.
Oh, there it is.
We're learning so much about D&D Beyond today. But yes, you have taken 1 point of Constitution damage for today.
Alright, I put it in there, but okay, there it goes.
What do you do with the vial, by the way?
I mean, if I don't get close enough to it, I'm just gonna like leave it. Actually, I'll throw it back over the river.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah,
'Cause
probably
if
not
you
a good
just
idea.
toss it in your bag, I'm gonna be like, well, you're gonna, it's gonna do things to you. And maybe your compatriots if they get close to you.
I frustratingly throw it back over the river.
Yeah. Okay.
Weapon, just hold it out with a mage hand constantly to your enemies.
Right. Oh my God, you guys are creating like
That- well,
uranium
that
based
would be-
bullets essentially.
I mean, like that was my sneaky plan, but it was ruined very quickly. I don't have
Yep.
mage hand. All I have is telekinesis.
Experiments. You made your experiment.
Should have to. I mean, I had to try.
All right. What are the rest of you doing on this fine morning? Is anyone doing anything particular, or are you guys getting ready to leave?
I don't know if Timber wants to RP it, but I did want to do a meditation with him.
Yeah.
It's up
Or
to
what,
you,
need
Alex.
something?
Yeah, I do you have time to walk me through just like a 5-minute meditation before we go?
Sure.
Doesn't have to be long.
Oh.
I want to try again.
It might be. it might be difficult with Wiswick hanging on to Kieran's leg, crying that he's going to die.
That is what you walk up on, I guess. And I guess Timber Wisbick is crying he is going to die next to you, so you can deal with that if you'd like.
I can feel the life force slipping.
Well, you knew that's what happened to Jet, didn't you? Why would you continue to play with fire?
I had to try. Imagine the alchemical possibilities. It could have came in really handy.
You played with fire?
More like constitution draining magical
Oh,
fauna.
right.
Flora. Excuse me.
Scarlet, maybe this is the best of times.
That's fine.
We should try tomorrow morning.
All right.
Sean, what's the weather like?
Right now, it is still quite windy, but it's not. The storm is not as bad as it was yesterday. It has lessened. You won't have disadvantage on your perception checks, and your horses will be able to move at full kind of capacity and get you a full day's travel. It's still
Yes.
cold, of course, but you'll be in better shape.
Looking a little nicer out. Maybe we try to make up some of that lost time yesterday.
Agreed,
Back up the
says Cal, getting into his horse. Onto
Come,
his
bro.
horse.
We've got a long day ahead of us. As he pats him and says something cute in an Elvish. I don't know.
I speak Elvish. What does he say?
Don't worry, my little child. I won't work you too hard. We simply must make good time to perform the good deeds of our Crescent Heart. Right? Isn't that what you want?
All right, that's. Yeah. Cal makes sure everyone's mounted up and we're good to go.
Yeah. I imagine Cal hearing.
And I for sure light a cigarette
Okay.
because I didn't have any yesterday because the wind was too high.
I imagine anytime Kieran says something in Elvish to like Roko or anything else where he like forgets Cal can speak Elvish, it's very much like when Aragorn can hear behind him the hobbits being like, "We're going to see the elves," and he just sort of gives a smile like, those guys."
You stupid little. I mean,
This elf. But most of today goes without much issue. If you'd like to keep an eye on the countryside around you, feel free to give me perception checks. As far as weather inhibitions go, let's go
Oh.
clear.
10.
Is there still a disadvantage?
No
No.
disadvantage.
13.
15 from
it's
Cal.
gonna be a 32 from me, Sean.
Be a 25 for
Eh.
Oh, some nice ones. What was Scarlet?
10.
Scarlet, I'll just say you're distracted by the cold still. Even though it's not windy, it's still cold.
It's cold.
Very
Abaddon
cold.
has to
19 from
cold.
Jet.
that's a lot.
You've got resistance to fire, but not cold. Wisbick, what'd you get?
19 from Jet.
Nice. Okay. So there's a kind of like a clear sign of not necessarily comfort, but security a little bit, in that you start to see smokestacks from the farmhouses. You're out of the kind of decimated tillage and into where there's still people live here. It's operational. You start to see livestock, as opposed to passing a scorched farm with like an old horse corpse out in the front. You're starting to see like in kind of the very dim sunlight, horses in fields. You're starting to see people moving about that are actually doing their everyday, day to day. Not suspicious at all. There's a comfort to like the you're just a fucking farmer. It's not gonna fucking kill me. But for the most part, that's all you notice in this afternoon as you're passing through. It's a pretty safe day for you all, pretty comfortable, especially considering the day before. It's a good moment to recuperate a lot of your your energy. It'll probably be one more day before you get to the town. Is there anything you'd like to do this day before kind of resting again for the evening? Before getting to Astronari?
I would do that same thing I did last night, which is like watch our back trail for a while after we camp.
Absolutely. Give me a perception check with disadvantage as the night comes. But this is a relatively typical day of travel.
Well, it's a 7.
Okay. Similar to the night before, this is very much so kind of a paranoid ritual for you. That you know that you're going to always have trouble kind of keeping an eye out in the dark like this, but you have to do it. You just have to do it.
I'm also positioned downfield, you know, so like it's like even if I don't see them, at least they'll get to me first, and I can be
And
like,
that-
ah.
Yeah, and that's
Anyways.
honestly pretty much the purpose of this. It more so than like seeing people in the distance is like, I'm here. If they're gonna come, I'll see them first, and I can do something.
Cal, Scarlet would have offered to come with you when she noticed that you were starting to do your usual routine. Do you want to help?
Cal would shrug and go, I've got it if you want to stay here. I know you get colder easily.
Well, you said to keep moving.
Well, true, but we'll have a hut, so that's...
If you don't want my help, it's fine.
Private.
I'll just go.
Cal doesn't have emotion in either direction on his face. He's just like, no, if you want to come, you can. It's up to you. I don't need help.
Okay, fine. She won't go help.
Cal just nods and then walks away.
All right. Was there anything anyone else would like to do during this time?
Wiswick regrets the fact that he could have left his sock behind and used it to teleport the stuff in as a would have
Well,
been
as you sit in your regret. As you sit in your regret, slowly recovering your constitution. Was there anything anyone else would like to do in this evening?
I'd like to check in with Kieran.
Go for it.
My buddy Kieran.
Imagine Kieran was pretty stoic today.
Yeah.
Yes, he was eyes ahead. That's why he had that 32. He was just looking for love from a divine entity. That is.
Okay. While we're, setting up camp and whatever, if you got the hut up, you've got the hut
starting
up.
to prepare the ritual for the hut. He's putting out his incense and laying out salt.
Sure. Do you make a salt circle? Because I imagine if you make a salt circle, then Scarlet will go sit where she normally sits in the hut, and then she could talk to you there.
Yeah, so that's what he'll be doing. He'll be laying out the salt for the edge as like that magical thing, and he's like placing little incense sticks around the perimeter.
Perfect.
It's a whole show every time.
It's just a production.
It's like 3 to 4 minutes of prep and then 6 minutes of actual ritual casting.
It soothes Scarlet to watch, but she'll go and sit cross-legged in her usual spot, and she'll have her. I don't know. I'm gonna say she's a journal now, just or a binder.
Just as a quick interruption, I really want Salt Bay art of Kieran now. After you did that. Anyway, continue.
She'll sit down with her. Actually, you know what? No, she has a portfolio just full of loose leaf parchment, and she'll have it out, and there's like some that are sticking out, and she has a blank piece on top, and she'll sit down, and then she'll think about what she wants to write, and then she'll look up at Kieran. You were rather quiet today.
Well, not much to say.
Sure, but it's rather unlike you.
Well,
even if the
I thought that I divulged most. and then giving her a side eye, but not all, of our previous adventures with the governor yesterday, I'd give his ears some respite.
Just right
I-
now, you see the governor just skipping rocks in the river.
I do appreciate your discretion.
Of course.
How are you?
How am I? You want to know how I am? Oh, I'm fine. Yes, just we got our holy quest to go on. I'm very elated that everyone has decided to join. I did fear that there would have to be a little more coercing of some of our fellow members. He says, giving a side eye to Wiswick, and then looking out to the
Still
distance where
crying.
Cal had wandered off to. But luckily, everyone seemed to come. No questions. Well, a few questions asked, but
I'm concerned about Cal.
as am I.
I mean, I know he's seen some things and been through some things, but I don't know. It's not the same.
We experienced a minor skirmish almost outside Drift March. Weeks after that, I still heard the screams, the yells. Do you remember the cavalry charge? I stopped them, sleep in darkness. The sound of those horses colliding over each other, the vision of them, riders being thrown, bones splitting through armor. To live with that every single day, to go through it, inflicting that pain on others, seeing it inflicted on his friends. He said his last mission, only himself and one other man returned from an outing. Can you imagine knowing how many men? 10, 20? 20 men. And then losing them all in the span of minutes? Seconds? I can't. No.
Okay.
I am definitely worried about Cal. You're correct. What to do about it?
I don't know either.
Hmm.
I'm not a wordsmith. Can write them nicely, but
I feel this is something that goes higher than words. More than words?
Beyond.
Thank you, oh mysterious voice from the heavens. Beyond. This goes beyond simple words.
Timber, do you need something?
No, I imagine Timber was putting up the wind wall for the horses.
Yeah.
And also eavesdropping.
Totally.
Yeah,
'Cause he
I'm
can't
gonna
help
say
it.
that I noticed you eavesdropping.
Yeah, imagine Timber, you're like literally like dropping down wood to start constructing the wall as you kind of like, I imagine like in the perimeter around Curon's ritual, as Curon has stopped his ritual to have this conversation with Scarlet, and you're just sort of doing that thing where you're just kind of every now and then looking over as you're listening to this conversation.
I think he'll be fine. Just an effect of Earth's Lord. Mindset is set for survival. He'll pass.
How can you be so sure?
Well, I've dealt with a lot of people. Adapted to theirs. I need to do what I need to do to survive.
I can understand that.
But they should change over time. Constantly be in a state of times of relaxation, or like we do, right? Probably thinks he's still at war.
True, this was supposed to be his leave. And now I've dragged him off for another cosmic adventure.
But look at what he's doing now. He's backtracking now, which is a good idea. Very good. We should be doing that. But that extra caution that
That's helpful. Thank you both.
we should watch him though.
I was just about to ask, should we say anything? Keep asking him how he is, or just leave him alone?
No. Keep treating him like normal, like you would normal.
Right, that's what we do with Timber here when he's got a demon spirit, the Feywild inside him. Demon wolf spirit thing.
I imagine Timber reaches
Timber at
for
this,
this
yeah,
flask at that
exactly.
point.
I was just about to say.
Same page.
Yeah. and
sorry,
he takes a
didn't mean
big
to-
swig too, after like somewhat embarrassed. Yes, just drink or talk with him.
All right.
Well, once we get to Vermelsia, I'm sure some of the light will return to him. He always liked those big city urban environments. Likes to go to a bar, get a drink, see the local.
Pay them off.
Yes, find an urchin.
That's true. He'll probably be more like himself around civilization.
And then, of course, going to Stormrain. Oh boy, I can't wait.
I don't
To
imagine
see
it'll
what
be the
can.
Same thing, but you can place bets if you want.
No, I don't know.
Buy gold.
Ilyvanya says gambling.
And
One
I d-
sip of whiskey and
Yeah,
Timber's
right?
like, let's start gambling.
All right. Well,
Your concern is well placed, Scarlet. But for now, let's wait to see how he reacts to this changing environment.
People don't change in 2 days, also.
no, that's for sure. Kieran, can you finish that, please? I don't like the cold.
All right, give me 6 minutes to read the incantation.
And the bubble goes up. And you all find rest for the evening. We want to do real quick perception checks for watches. Whoever would like to take first, second watch, and Kieran, if you'd like to take the third.
Yeah.
Quick perception checks.
I'll do second this time.
Okay. Who would like to do first?
I'll stay on first.
Okay. Go ahead and
I'll
give me
take
those
first
perception
with Cal.
Okay.
I don't know, it's on third.
I was just gonna say that.
So, for those of you on first watch, and generally this is kind of goes through the night, but the storm calms by the time your watches come, and the snow and dust settles. As you can see this evening, it is a very light snow raining down. Very, very light. The kind of snow that some people would say the next day might have really hard snow just because the snowflakes are so small, but it's very peaceful. It's extraordinarily quiet now that the wind has stopped, and you can see quite far under a clear sky, other than patchwork clouds here that seem to be dropping the snow. The moonlight illuminating the surroundings, so you have no disadvantage on your perception checks, and you can look out into the night. So Timber and Cal, give me perception checks.
Timber's drunk.
Yeah, oh yeah, Timber's drunk.
I didn't say it, but I'll take last watch with Kieran.
Cool. So I'm at. Has Timber just been sipping the sauce up
Oh,
to this?
Timber's
point?
like, ever since Kieran made that one comment, he's like, yeah. And that's all he's been thinking about. Is just like, well, like not like problem.
But I would say though, for you, Timber, you get to this point where like everyone's like, "Oh, what are we doing? Watch," and you just sort of, "I'll do first watch," kind of like, "I'll do it." But in your minds, like all you've been thinking about since then is like you said, like it's just been like a reminder. Like you haven't not thought about it, but this is like a reminder of like how close it was to absolute chaos in the trenches. And how you were moments away from either likely dying, potentially killing your friends, potentially getting your friends killed, and just having it all be over because of this fucking demon. And maybe it makes you think of all the different things that have led to this moment and compare your own trauma to Cal's.
I rolled a 22.
Yeah, Cal's doing his job.
As Timber's like, Timber, you can roll a perception check if you'd like. I will say
I did. I rolled. It was a natural one.
Oh, okay. Well, then you can't disadvantage it lower. So, Timber, you're absolutely forgot you're on watch. As you're kind of hanging out with Cal, mostly you've been going through the motions with Cal as he's looking around the perimeter. Cal, you would notice what Wiswick was talking about the night before, and that you would occasionally see the eyes of some kind of animal across the river, since you are still close to the hinterlands, and you will be because they're quite large for most of the journey. But now that it's mostly civilized in the place you're in, I'd say earlier on in the evening, you would have maybe even noticed like a boat going upstream towards the front that may be carrying supplies. Like it's every now and then you might have noticed people walking on the road. Now that it's night, not so much anymore. But with a 22, it's pretty quiet. There is a singular moment though, maybe about an hour into your watch, when you think you see a light in the distance. And in the very same way in the trenches, almost like the same way you hide the cigarette light of your cigarettes, it's a moment of presence. And then it disappears. There's times when you think to yourself, am I being too paranoid? But then your inner monologue immediately goes, no, I'm not.
No such thing anymore. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start walking around like I'm an idiot. I'm gonna start looking like I'm bad at my job, and I'm like tired of like being out here in the cold. And I'm just doing one last like patrol towards the direction of that light, but not directly, not like beeline it. I'm like circling it. And what I'm trying to do is like act like I'm, or like, I'm making it look like I didn't see it, and I'm just happen to be patrolling in this direction, and I'm looking for any kind of movement, or listening or whatever. I'm like, because you said it was dead quiet, so any kind of movement, that's what I'm looking for.
Certainly, yeah. Okay. Not gonna ask you to do a roll for this because it's you essentially intentionally failing a stealth roll. All the while, I'm assuming you're kind of keeping an eye on that spot.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to go still. Like I'm not actually failing a stealth roll. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've eased my sword in its scabbard to make sure it's not frozen. You know?
Okay. Give me a perception check with advantage while you're doing this. I imagine Timber is adding to the illusion by just like stumbling around, following you.
I was gonna.
Or like Timber. What are you doing?
Timber would have blown up his spot and be like telling him stories about his like kids. And be like, oh yeah, So like Leo one time, he was coming down the stairs, but
Mm-hmm.
getting my beer from upstairs because I also
Mhm.
left. He forgot his other toys too while we were
Mhm.
downstairs, and I was reading a book to Selena, and it was funny because he missed the last step and fell on his face on his toy, but good lesson there.
Mhm.
And I forgot where I was going with this story.
Did he save the beer?
Yeah, what'd you get for your perception roll?
I rolled 2 8s.
Thanks. Okay.
So actually 2 12s. Sorry.
I would say, so as you're doing this, I imagine you two, like with Timber in tow behind you, telling you stories that are endearing but also incredibly sad.
Really
not
good here.
not mostly because you know the truth of like his entire life, the fact that he can't see his children. Oh no. Sadness. But you are kind of like recklessly moving about trying to get some kind of response out of this distant light. And the one thing I will say is, as soon as you kind of make yourself known and present, even with your kind of charade, you would notice, not because you've lost vision of it, you just see the light go out as soon as they can see you. But you specifically do see it go out. It's not that you lose sight of it.
I think I'm just gonna wander over to that location now. Still trying to make it look like I'm not beelining for there, but like I'm gonna go to that location.
Okay, so you're heading towards where the light was
Yeah.
to try to, and are you continuing the charade of kind of seeming like you're just being reckless as opposed
Yeah,
to
up to about 30 feet. In which case I will sprint right at right at that location.
Okay, all right. So for the 30 feet, just give me a quick performance check to seem inept. I'll give you advantage because Timber looks inept right now. Because Timber is being inept right now.
Yeah, Timber also has. I don't think Timber, like Cal, informed Timber of what's going on because
No,
Timber has
I
no
imagine
idea why we're wandering.
Timber has just continued telling
Okay.
stories to Cal as
Something-
he's walking
something-
now up to the road, and you're now walking kind of like into some of the farmland.
Something's up with this fucking roller, man. I just rolled 2 9s.
Okay,
It was 2 8s and then 2 9s. Okay, keep going.
that's fine.
So 2 10s. Sorry.
Okay, so as you're moving through, Cal, you see no signs of this person. As you've moved through, I imagine it's the sort of thing where you kind of like are walking back and forth, not looking drunk, but just sort of like as if you're exploring almost, while Timber is following close behind. So you're stepping, you just hear the crunch of the snow. It's quiet. You stop that 30 feet down after you've done this, and you're looking out into the darkness. You know that look of wintry night where there's just enough moonlight where it reflects off the snow. You see nothing right now at all. What do? You continue sprinting forward towards where it was?
Oh, I sprint now. Yeah.
That's what I was asking for.
Yes.
Okay. So, in this instant, you start sprinting forward. Timber, what do you do? Cal is sprinting towards the fields ahead that are covered in snow. What do you do?
Due to alcohol's reaction time, going to sprint, but a few seconds later.
Okay. So, Cal, you're sprinting across this farmland, essentially towards kind of, those patches of wilderness between farms. You're sprinting towards this where you saw this light. Probably about a mile from camp total, or approaching a mile, and you're just sprinting. And maybe it's instinct, maybe it's just this gut desire for the conflict as you're sprinting across this very flat, snow-covered farm. Timber, about 30 feet behind him, you start chasing after him as well. The two of you out in the open, sprinting towards this invisible enemy. Cal, it feels like forever that you're running. It feels exactly like the first time you ever ordered to actually charge across no man's land, as there's not even the debris of dead animals or twisted trees here. It's just flat farmland. You almost trip at one point over an old root or something in the rivets of the farmland, but you keep running. Do you have like your weapon out and all of that?
Yes.
All right. Give me a perception check real quick.
9.
9. Okay. So your vision almost like blurs as you're running, as you're looking for you're just desperately looking for that source of light. And you don't find it. But as you're running, you almost slow down at one point, but you keep moving. What's your AC?
18.
You hear it first. This fast sound of zzz, magic. As you feel it pierce through your chest. A magic missile rail hits right through your chest.
Okay. Question.
Yes.
Does the absorb elements thing have to be like on some kind of magic that could it be on any like what can I use absorb elements on this? Is my question.
Let me check real quick.
We got some homebrew magic items. Does the DM actually remember what he did?
Because it just says incoming
Yes.
energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can use it, and because you were not like just standing around and you were like charging in the sense of like I'm gonna go and attack, I will consider this not like you were surprised by the attack. So you can use your reaction to use the absorb elements aspect of your armor.
Okay. Well, then I do that.
Okay. All right. So then, in that sense, well, this is the amount of damage you can absorb. You can do the resistance for it to half it. You take 34 points of force damage.
Okay.
So trigger absorb elements that'll have that.
Yeah.
So the hexed plate of your half plate, as this rail bolt of magic missile fires into your chest, ordinarily it would have ripped right through you, and it would have been a clean in and out wound, and you'd be bleeding out. But you feel a large chunk of it being absorbed as you can feel the armor, the half plate of your armor vibrating with the energy, and you can see runes glowing on it as you can feel the empowerment and knowing that you can use this now. As you kind of like stop in the snow and almost drop to a knee for a second. Timber, you're running up behind him as he stopped.
I for sure dropped to a knee. In fact, I probably would start like rolling around or something on the ground. But I would say, so did that come from like dead ahead?
Dead ahead.
I would yell contact front and like point out in the direction of where I thought the shot came from. And then I would immediately look for anywhere that isn't an open field, even if it's just like alongside a road or like on the riverbank or whatever.
Closest thing is a barn, and you'll have to sprint to. You're in.
Then we're
the
fucking
farm
we're
fields.
fucking moving. We are
Timber, what are you
continuing
doing?
moving.
You hear this. You hear this sharp like, and then you hear the. As you can see, some slight glowing runes that now have calmed down on Cal's armor as he's dropped to the ground and said this. What do you do?
Timber, like, instead of treating this watch like kind of like a joke as he was before, take it seriously. But after seeing this go down, Timber like wakes up a little bit, like, oh shit, and then he. There are trees everywhere, or does this get
You guys are in the middle of a
clearing?
farm field.
Yes, that's right.
Closest clearing is a barn that I'll say is about 120 feet away from you.
Timber immediately like gets down towards where Cal is, and then just to get out of sight, like
There is no out of sight.
Sorry,
No, we keep moving. I'm still running. I have
Cal
not-
starts
just on the
yeah.
ground.
I got
Right.
hit. I spun around. And
So,
like,
Cal dropped to a knee from the damage and then started running as he yelled
Oh,
this.
I heard the word rolling. Anyway. All right, yeah. No,
well, I thought there was cover.
Yeah, so
that would
retcon it.
be-
Yeah,
I retconned
You
okay.
two are running. He's running towards the barn. You can follow. if you'd
Okay,
like.
yes, no, Timber would immediately be following.
Okay. Timber, what's your AC?
18.
All right, Timber, you see another one of these rails just, and it flings right past the front of your face. As you can see, what you recall is like you think back to like when Wiswix used magic missile and the way he shot out these bolts that have turned into blades and whatnot. And essentially, what you just saw is as if all of those energy fields were condensed into a single laser-focused point that shot past your face. And you can see the snow immediately kind of bursts next to you. As you stop for a moment, as it has missed you, and you continue running.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to, because Al is not running as fast as Timber, so Timber's going to help push him and cast darkness, but in like where I think in front of where I think the missile.
Yeah, between you and where you think it's coming from.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
I should say in line of sight of where we're going. So like, if we're here and they're there, like I would put it here because the barn is over here, and so that he can't.
Oh,
see
should
us.
give you a little bit more cover,
Exactly.
like, so that make the cover closer. Essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say you could definitely do that. And I'll say that the last attack before you actually have cover will have disadvantage because of that. But because you're faster, the last attack will be on Cal. Which I'll say, Cal, you still have resistance for this attack. Because it is going to hit.
Actually,
Oh, you know now, so you can.
yeah, I'm not surprised anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and
Yeah.
say that I'm ready for this baby.
Hell
And
yeah.
as it comes in, I like duck down a little, and
Mhm.
I bring the blade up, and I cut the thing right in half. Just cut
Okay.
that fucking bolt in half if we can.
All right. How many charges would you like to expend?
I'm gonna expend 2 charges,
Okay.
which I believe makes it a level 4.
I believe it does. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So you see Timber. You would turn and look as you you cast this darkness ahead of you, and you turn and look as you kind of like stumble and shift across the kind of frozen snow. And you look back and you see Cal is running, and then he hears something, and you see him immediately stop and just fling his sword across, and like a fucking baseball batter, just hits this bolt, and you see it just. Ping! You hear a loud clanging against the steel of his blade as this bolt is just knocked completely out of the air by Cal.
Was I able to actually see where that came from now?
I would say since you did successfully counter it, yes, you are able to see that it is coming from about 250 feet away from you in the kind of hedges between this farm and the next farm.
Okay.
We talking single, double, foul ball?
Fun.
Yes.
Can I Timbers knows he's impaired and knows that if they have to fight, he's not going to do. So what he's going to do is take out his old poison reduction potion and try to chug it to sober
I'll allow
up real
that.
quick. Okay.
Yeah, I'll allow that.
Like a
I'm gonna move another 30 feet, and then I'm going to pull from its holster, which I don't think we've seen yet. I'm not sure
No,
though.
we have not.
Pull from its holster the firearm that Cal has had there, which I think I described once. And I'm going to basically to cover him so he can get up to the enemy without any more fire. I'm gonna pop a shot off at what I think is the enemy.
Okay, go ahead and give me just an attack roll with that with disadvantage.
Yep.
And what type of damage are you using for this?
I'm gonna use lightning damage.
Okay.
The question, Sean, is what is my attack roll with this? Because it doesn't.
It is a standard ranged attack.
Hang on. Sorry. Oh wait, I do have it. Okay. Okay, 2 13s.
Okay.
18.
18. All right. So you watch kind of after essentially Cal takes his blade out and cuts through this magic attack that hits as you turn and look, and you see him pull this sidearm out that essentially looks like an ornate crossbow without the bow and some metal hinges at the front that are covered in runes. That is reminiscent of a cannon, a hand cannon, one might say. As you can see, these runes light up a bright blue color, and you can hear a very, very quiet, as you can see, just this arc of lightning fires across, and it goes freaking far. And as it goes, it changes from this arcing bolt into a singular bolt moving forward. As you can see, it hits into the brush. You're not sure if it hit anyone there, but you can see it's slightly ignited some of the brush, as there is a small fire growing there. As the two of you are, or at least Timber, you've reached the barn. Cal, you're right outside of the barn. There is a wave of darkness there, and that's where we're gonna end tonight.
Good measure. Cliffhanger.
Two of you are
Wow.
facing off something in the dark. As the rest of you are back at camp sleeping, literally asleep right now. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight and sticking around. We had a great time. Thank you for sticking around and waiting for Shannon to get into the room. Shannon, we're happy
Thanks,
to have you
everybody.
come. Hope the babysitting went well.
It was wonderful.
Some
but-
babies.
Some babies. But folks, join us for all of our programming throughout the week. Thursday night is going to be another night of Relaxing in Paradise from me, where I will be working on maps, minis, and fun, and probably playing some more Valheim like I did last week with Josh, probably, Shannon's husband. Join us on Saturday for a one-shot in Paradise with our lovely, lovely one-shot DM, Stefan. It should be a fun time. We got some great people there.
The theme, for those curious, is dwarven trains with demons.
Yes,
I love it.
I'm very excited
Oh,
for it. I like a
man.
good train adventure.
Yes.
And then, of course, the Tim and Shannon Power Hour on Sunday, where they will talk about tonight's session and engage in some other fun stuff. And then join us again next Monday to see what happens to Cal and Timber in the night.
Did they die?
Rude.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was muted.
Rude.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining us in Paradise. Thank you for the raid, Random Encounter Productions.
Yes, thank
Sorry that it
you.
was right at the end, but hopefully it was cool the few minutes you saw. And hopefully you'll join us again in the future. Thank you for the raid. But otherwise, thanks for joining us in Paradise, and have a lovely week. We'll see you soon.